Chapter 376. How could a 3-year-old child be hated to this extent? If it was the fault of someone in the clan, then why was it Su Xiao? Qiao Jin took a sip of tea. I'm not too sure either. The evil spirit array is still very difficult to break. Even if it was her, it would be very difficult for her to see the cause and effect of someone else's life. Song Yanqing grasped the main point. Is there a way to break it? Qiao Jin nodded. We just need to find the grave of the person who placed the curse. The source of the array point can only exist on the person who placed the curse. If the person who placed the curse is dead, then it will be on his corpse. We have to find the grave. Song Yanqing suddenly sighed. Is there a price to pay to save him? Qiao Jin said, of course, but it also depends on the situation. I can't see any sins on his body, which means that the person who placed the curse on him is not protected by karma. As long as we can find the grave, it's not impossible to save him. Of course, since Song Yanqing had said this, Qiao Jin understood. She raised her eyebrows. You want me to save him? Song Yanqing thought for a while. His cold voice was calm. If it's bad for you, I won't trouble you for no reason. At this point, Qiao Jin also understood that if he wanted to cause trouble for Qiao Jin, he would not ask Qiao Jin for help. There were some things that had to be prioritized. He knew that Qiao Jin greatly avoided karma, so he naturally would not let trouble find Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin said, it's not impossible. Saving someone who was not protected by karma would not be troublesome. Even if the person who placed the curse hates him so much, it would probably be difficult to find his grave. It was possible that he had died in the wilderness without a complete corpse, making it impossible for people to break the array. This meant that he hated the other party. Song Yanqing said, is it possible that the person who placed this array is still alive? Qiao Jin said, no, the other party is already dead. I can see that, but I can't find where he died. Song Yanqing nodded and did not ask any more questions. He would deal with the following matters. Qiao Jin said that saving him was the limit. She could not take the initiative to find Su Xiao and tell him that he could still be saved. Song Yanqing would tell the other party. Whether he believed it or not, whether he wanted to save him or not, that was their business. After the meal, Song Yanqing and Qiao Jin, they just happened to meet Jiang Chunji and his fiancée. When the other party saw Song Yanqing, he was slightly surprised. President Song? Song Yanqing saw the other party, and a faint smile appeared between his eyebrows. Mr. Ji Nuo? It seemed that Jiang Chunji did not expect to meet Song Yanqing here. Although the other party was much younger than him, his status could not be underestimated. Even though Jiang Chunji was now in a high position, he took the initiative to reach out his hand and said politely, I didn't expect Mr. Song to also have a meal here. Last time, the cooperation was interrupted halfway by an accident, which was a little regrettable. I wonder when you have time to discuss it with me again. Song Yanqing still had a smile on his lips, but if one looked carefully, one would see a faint alienation in his eyes. Mr. Ji Nuo, you are too polite. I am now on a private trip, and the work will be arranged by my secretary. Just follow the plan. If there is a chance for cooperation, this time will not be short. Jiang Chunji immediately realized that Song Yanqing did not like to talk about business in this kind of occasion. He immediately nodded. Sorry for being rude. His eyes swept to Qiao Jin, but his eyes were much calmer. But when his fiancée beside him saw Song Yanqing, she obviously showed a stunned expression. Chapter 377. Jiang Chunji and Song Yanqing knew each other? Qiao Jin didn't expect it, but the capital was only so big. It didn't seem surprising that there was cooperation in the business field. It also proved how big the Song family's business was. Jiang Chunji was the CEO of a multinational consortium. When he saw Song Yanqing, he also politely wanted to talk about cooperation. Hello, Mr. Song. The beautiful fiancée beside him also stretched out her hand with a perfect smile on her lips. Her posture was confident and generous. At first glance, it was obvious that she was a noble young lady raised in a rich environment. Song Yanqing glanced at her outstretched hand and didn't move. He smiled and said, Sorry, I don't shake hands with people because of my health. Miss Qin, I'm really sorry. The woman who was called Miss Chin didn't feel embarrassed. Instead, she was flattered. So Mr. Song knows me? Song Yanqing said in an official tone. Mr. Ji Nuo's fiancée is Miss Chin, the heir of the Fran Group. This is known to all. If Mr. Ji Nuo is holding someone else, Miss Chin glanced at Jiang Chunji and revealed a shy smile. Of course, he wouldn't dare. Jiang Chunji just smiled faintly. Qiao Jin, who was beside Song Yanqing, was so quiet that it was as if he didn't exist. Of course, she was too lazy to listen when she saw Song Yanqing talking to business people. Song Yanqing was about to find an excuse to leave when the door next to him opened again. A clear and bright voice with a hint of sweetness said, "Sister, a new car has just come out recently. I like it very much. Can you accompany me to see if you want to buy?" Before he finished speaking, Feng Chenan saw Song Yanqing. His smile suddenly faded a little. The reason why he hid it was because he saw Jiang Chunji opposite Song Yanqing. Fan Jin and Feng Chenan walked out and saw the people in the corridor. They were stunned again. If it was in the past, her emotions would definitely fluctuate. But now, her years of acting experience forced her to calm down. She was also distracted by Song Yanqing and Qiao Jin. Good-looking people could really ease one's mind. When Fan Jin saw Song Yanqing, she was really surprised. She had never seen such a good-looking Asian man in her life. It was truly an indescribable beauty. What was even rarer was that the other party had a noble aura. With one look, one could tell that he was a young master raised by a wealthy family. There was a kind of grace and elegance that ordinary people could not possess. She was simply a peerless beauty. When he stood next to Qiao Jin, they were simply a pair of good-looking beauties. Fan Jin liked to compare people with celebrities in the entertainment industry. If these two were to debut, many people would go crazy. She could not help but sigh. "Cousin, you're here too?" Fortunately, she was distracted and only reacted when she heard Feng Chen speak. "Cousin?" She was a little surprised. She never thought that such a beautiful and noble man in front of her was Feng Chen's cousin. "Yes, my cousin." Phoenix Grace smiled and greeted Qiao Jin. "Hi, Miss Qiao." Of course, Qiao Jin nodded politely and coldly. Fan Jin was even more surprised. "You know her?" She had mentioned this girl twice in front of Feng Chenan, but she had never heard Feng Chenan say that he knew Qiao Jin. Feng Chenan looked at Fan Jin with an innocent expression. "You didn't ask." "Miss Qiao is my cousin's good friend. In fact, I've only seen her twice." While they were talking, Qiao Jin and Song Yanqing both noticed that Jiang Chunji's face stiffened when he looked at Fan Jin. Chapter 378. Song Yanqing immediately sensed something. Jiang Chen knew Fan Jin, and Fan Jin was the girl his cousin, Feng Chenan, was pursuing. He knew what was going on, but he didn't say anything. He only smiled at Feng Chenan. "I didn't expect you to be here." Miss Chin looked at Feng Chenan and greeted him politely. "Is this Mr. Song's cousin?" Song Yanqing only responded out of social etiquette, "Yes." There was no need to introduce him. Feng Chenan didn't have any contact with them. Feng Chenan ignored her and introduced Fan Jin with a smile. "Cousin, Miss Qiao, this is my friend, Fan Jin." He said they were friends, but he usually called her sister. Qiao Jin nodded again. How annoying. She didn't like social etiquette. Although she had a good impression of Fan Jin, she didn't want to talk in front of so many people. When Song Yanqing spoke, her voice was a bit lazy. "I want to go back." Song Yanqing didn't finish speaking to Feng Chenan and immediately changed the topic. "Then let's go back." His expression was gentle and his voice carried a trace of gentle doting. Others could see the difference. Feng Chenan. Heh. His cousin wasn't the same as before. Fan Jin was surprised by the relationship between Song Yanqing and Qiao Jin. Feng Chenan had only said that she was a friend, not a girlfriend. If she wasn't a girlfriend, why did it feel strange? Song Yanqing smiled apologetically at everyone and left with Qiao Jin. The atmosphere between the remaining two groups was strange. Feng Chenan didn't even have the mood to pay attention to them. As soon as Song Yanqing left, he left with Fan Jin without hesitation. He didn't say anything to Jiang Chen and the others. Miss Qin's smile froze for a moment. Mr. Song's cousin doesn't seem very polite. She was slightly dissatisfied. Jiang Chunji said indifferently, "He's young and I've never seen you before. He doesn't know how to deal with people, so it's normal for him to be rude. There are many young masters like him in the capital." Miss Qin was a little curious. "I think I know the woman beside him. Is she a female celebrity?" Jiang Chunji's heart skipped a beat, and his tone was very cold. "I don't know him." Miss Qin replied with an "oh" and then sneered, "These female stars are all like this. They like to cling on to these rich young masters and think that they can marry into a rich family, but most of these young masters are just playing with them. I've seen a lot of this. There are many women outside who won't let go of my brother. Kino, I don't care about others, but if you dare to mess around outside, I won't let you off. Don't forget that you relied on me to get to where you are today. When we get married, the control of China will be yours. You have to treat me well. I don't want to see anything bad happen. You will guarantee it, right?" She leaned on Jiang Chunji's shoulder with a sweet expression, but there was no smile in her eyes. Of course, she didn't notice that as she spoke, Jiang Chunji's expression became colder and colder. After she finished speaking, he responded coldly, "Okay, I won't." He watched Fan Jin and Feng Chen leave. He thought to himself, she has been in the circle for so many years, but she still can't keep her heart. After all, she is young and has a high status. Did the current her also know how to climb up the ladder? He lowered his eyes, and with a coldness that others couldn't detect, he left with his fiancée. Chapter 379. Song Yanqing sent Qiao Jin home and told him about the dormitory. He would send someone to investigate. If anything happened, he would inform Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin agreed. When she got home, she saw Qiao Fei rushing over in a hurry. "Something big has happened." Qiao Jin said calmly, "Fei Fei, you can call me if you need anything. You don't have to wait for me to come back." Qiao Fei was stunned for a moment before she reacted. Her expression wasn't good. "It's too sudden. Mom didn't expect it. It's really something big." Musilian suddenly jumped out of the house. "Mom asked me to tell her. I'll give her a bolt out of the blue." Qiao Fei, before she could stop her son, Mu Qi quickly said, "Something happened at the Ji family. Ji Fanjing and his mother got into a car accident. It wasn't a big problem, but for some reason, the medical staff found out that his mother wasn't related to him by blood. In other words, the fact that Ji Fanjing wasn't her biological son was exposed. Grandfather Ji's family is in a mess now." Qiao Jin, wow. She really didn't expect it. Her intuition told her that the Ji family was going to make trouble for her. In the end, it happened much earlier than she expected. Qiao Fei screamed, "Can't you be more reserved? Can't you consider whether your sister can take it or not?" Musilian was confused. What does the Ji family's accident have to do with her? Look at her expression. It's as if she's watching the gossip. Qiao Fei was very anxious. She grabbed Qiao Jin's hand and said helplessly, "It's over, it's over. Jin, now that they know that Ji Fanjing isn't her biological son, what if she tells them about you? Are you going to be brought back by the Ji family? What if they mistreat you because of Ji Fanjing? What if she hates you because of this?" As she spoke, her eyes turned red. She was about to cry. Qiao Jin, Musilian. At some point, Qiao Fei's imagination had broken through the sky. Musilian was stunned. "Mom, aren't you thinking too much? Now, only the fact that Ji Fanjing is not her biological son has been exposed. However, Ji Fanjing is indeed Uncle Qiao Jin's biological son. There is no need for them to find Qiao Jin, right?" Qiao Fei said, "What do you know? Ji Fanjing isn't her biological son. If Ji Qiue gets angry, the Ji family doesn't like her to begin with. She doesn't feel safe. What if she really reveals Qiao Jin?" Musilian, "Oh, that's possible. If Ji Qiue wanted to divorce her because of this, she might tell him about Qiao Jin to protect herself. He might even be able to go back to the Ji family to fight for some property. If she wanted to be wary of Qiao Jin, It was under the condition that Ji Fanjing wasn't exposed. Now that Ji Fanjing was exposed, it didn't seem like there was any use for her to be wary of Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin's voice was clear. It's okay. I won't go back. Qiao Fei's imagination was still going wild. They will sue you and force you to go back. You're so beautiful now. They might force you to go back for a marriage alliance. They want you to marry someone who doesn't like you and has an affair. Musilian. His mother's imagination was amazing. For a moment, he really wanted to see such a thing happen. Qiao Jin's expression was serious. Watch less TV dramas and novels in the future. A normal person's brain had become abnormal. Qiao Fei, sob sob sob. Chapter 380. At night, the Mu family had another family meeting. This time, Mu Chiji, who was overseas and could only watch via video call, was among the participants. The news of the Ji family's accident spread very quickly. This was the most melodramatic thing in the entire upper-class society. The car accident at the Ji family actually exposed the fact that Ji Fanjing's current mother, Chai Yueli, was not his biological mother. However, after checking their bloodline, Ji Fanjing was indeed Ji Qiue's biological son. Then who was Ji Fanjing's mother? Why did it become Chai Yueli? Everyone was only concerned about this now. They did not even think about the fact that Chai Yueli had a biological daughter. Chai Yueli had relied on this son to climb up the ranks. Now that this matter was out, wasn't it the best gossip of the year? Mu Zhenming felt that the recent events were really melodramatic. Mu Xiangshan sat at the side and sighed. The scene I imagined really happened. It actually made people look forward to it. Qiao Fei cried. What about Qiao Jin? Mu Zhenming comforted her. Let's not worry about Qiao Jin for now. Chai Yueli might not reveal Qiao Jin. What she should be anxious about now is how to explain the matter of Ji Fanjing. Mu Chiji listened to the whole story through the video call and nodded. Even if the truth comes out, there's no need for her to expose Qiao Jin. Even if it's about the fight for the Ji family's assets, Qiao Jin isn't highly regarded now, not to mention Qiao Jin. Mu Xiangshan said leisurely, people are always afraid of what if. The more you say that it won't happen, the more likely it will. If she wants to keep her position and not get a divorce, there's a high chance that she will reveal Qiao Jin's matter. Of course, if Ji Qiue is determined to divorce her because of his son, there's no need to say it. Now, it's up to Ji Qiue to see how sincere he is to her. Musilian. I agree with Grandpa. Mu Xiangshan was a little shocked. There was actually a traitor in this family who agreed with him. Mu Zhenming also nodded. Actually, what Dad said makes sense. If Ji Qiue cared about his daughter, he might not divorce Chai Yueli. Then, Qiao Jin would be exposed. Qiao Fei's worries were groundless. Then, if she doesn't reveal that she's divorced, will she use it to threaten Qiao Jin? Ask Qiao Jin for money or something. Muzichu covered his forehead. Mom, have you ever thought about what she's going to use to threaten Qiao Jin? Was he going to reveal the truth? That won't do any harm to Qiao Jin. At most, the Ji family will know that they have a daughter outside. Perhaps Grandfather Ji will really bring Qiao Jin back. Qiao Fei was stunned. In that case, wouldn't it be good for Qiao Jin to go back? Mu Zhenming said, that's why your discussion doesn't count. The important thing is to see what Qiao Jin thinks. He looked at Qiao Jin with a serious expression. Qiao Jin, Uncle is asking you seriously. If this matter is really made public and the Ji family wants you to go back, will you choose to go back? Of course, even if you go back, Qiao Fei is still your mother. You're still a part of the Mu family. Qiao Fei was about to cry. That won't do. Qiao Jin can't go back. The surname Ji sounds so terrible. Wu Wu, Musilian and the others suddenly thought of what would happen if Qiao Jin changed his surname. Musilian immediately laughed very unkindly. Qiao Jin glanced at him coldly and said to Qiao Fei, he won't go back or change his surname. You've watched too many dramas. Chapter 381. The main reason was that her name was really Qiao Jin in the past. It was impossible for her to change her surname. She was just Qiao Jin. Xiao Fei heaved a sigh of relief when he heard her affirmation. Mu Xiangshan clicked his tongue. I don't know why you're so anxious. Even if the Ji family wants to acknowledge Qiao Jin, they'll at most build a relationship with us. What can they do if Qiao Jin doesn't go back? Mu Qizhi said firmly, yes, there's no need to panic. Chai Yueli is the one who's panicking the most right now. Mom, you don't have to worry so much. Xiao Fei said softly, I'm just upset. Back then, she abandoned Qiao Jin for her son and refused to acknowledge him. If she betrays Qiao Jin just because she doesn't want to get a divorce, I'll look down on her. He was throwing a tantrum, but he still carefully glanced at Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin's expression was still calm, as if they were discussing someone else's matter and had nothing to do with her. Everyone fell silent. Actually, they were thinking the same thing. If Chai Yueli really did that, it would be unfair to Qiao Jin. However, there was no harm in acknowledging the Ji family. If they stopped them, it would also be unfair to Qiao Jin. After a while, Qiao Jin said, it's actually not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Even if the truth comes out, I won't return to the Ji family. I'll be a part of the Mu family for the rest of my life. Zhenming, you don't have to worry. Mu Zhenming was speechless. So, he should at least call him uncle. Mu Zhenming could only sigh and accept Qiao Jin's refusal to greet him. Mu Xiangshan asked a tricky question. How will you address Ji Qiue and Chai Yueli in the future? Qiao Jin said, I'll call them by their names. Mu Xiangshan was satisfied. Very good. The treatment is very fair. Everyone was speechless. Why are you so hung up on this? In the end, the meeting did not come to a conclusion. Anyway, it was up to Qiao Jin whether he wanted to admit it or not. That was Qiao Jin's problem. When Qiao Jin was resting in his room at night, he replied to Su Nan, who had sent him a message during the day. Today, there might still be hope. Tell me about your family. Did you offend anyone in your family? On the other side, Su Nan didn't close the backstage. He was a little surprised when he saw the reply. In fact, he was desperate. The master they had found said that Su Xiu did not have long to live. He was at a loss. After so many years, he still couldn't find out what was wrong with Su Xiu. Now, he even knew that he wouldn't live for long. He saw a fortune teller on the internet who was said to be very accurate. In fact, he was just trying his best to get the fortune teller to predict Su Xiu's fate. The fortune teller was a true fortune teller. The fortune teller was the same as what the master at home said. Su Xiu didn't have long to live. The Su clan didn't know what was going on with Su Xiu. They didn't even understand why he was being treated so unfairly. Now that he suddenly saw the master's reply, Su Nan was surprised and pleasantly surprised. Could it be that the master saw his fate and felt that there was a turning point? However, he frowned when he saw the master's question. He actually didn't know how to answer. If he answered too much, it would reveal his privacy. However, in his memory, his parents were peaceful people. They didn't offend anyone. Did the master know what was wrong with Su Xiu? Anonymous buyer, do you know what the problem is? Chapter 382. Today, yes, but if you don't tell me clearly, it will be difficult for me to diagnose and determine whether he can be saved or not. Anonymous buyer, hello, it's not that I'm worried about revealing my privacy, but according to your question, there are only my parents and my brothers in my family. We have very few relatives. My parents are peaceful and have never offended anyone, so it's difficult to answer this question. Today, it seems that you don't know. Su Nan was stunned. Why did the fortune teller sound so sure that his family had offended someone? But who did they offend? How did they do it? They had never thought that Su Xiu had offended anyone. They had gone to countless doctors, but all of them said that it was a medical problem and they were helpless. It looked like he had been poisoned when he was young, but they couldn't treat him. It wasn't until later that they found some acquaintances who introduced them to a master. They didn't believe it at first, but the master said that there was no way to save Su Xiu, which made them feel even more desperate. Su Nan didn't know what he could do. Su Xiu was his twin brother. They were fine when they were young, but everything changed when they were 3 years old. The master didn't send any more messages. Sunan hesitated for a while and asked his parents, "Dad, Mom, I want to ask if our family has offended anyone." His parents were also at a loss. Who could we have offended? They had been gentle people all their lives. The whole capital knew that. Even Sunan's father was a good person. How could they have offended anyone? Sunan's mother was puzzled. "Why do you ask?" Sunan thought for a while and told them, "I found a fortune teller on the internet. He said that it's possible that our family has offended someone." "Why did you find a fortune teller on the internet?" "Those are all liars." Sunan's mother's face changed. She didn't believe the things on the internet at all. "The fortune teller we find is guaranteed. If a fortune teller on the internet like you is so accurate, why would you be a fortune teller on the internet? Do you know how much a fortune teller costs? How much did you spend on fortune telling on the internet?" Sunan said, 100,000. It's not a small amount, but that's his most expensive price. This fortune teller usually only costs 1,000. Sunan's mother said, "You've been cheated. How can it be so cheap?" Sunan, he felt that something was wrong, but he didn't know what was wrong. He opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. Father Su also frowned. "Sunan, I know you want to help your brother, but we have already found many ways to help him. You should spend more time with your brother." When he said this, his voice was choked with grief. He was only in his 40s, and a portion of his hair had already turned white from worrying about his youngest son's affairs. This only served to reflect his sorrow. As long as there was a way, who would let their son become like this? While they were talking, a slender figure wearing a mask was standing at the top of the stairs. He looked at them quietly, a pair of beautiful eyes under his long eyelashes. The corners of his mouth twitched, but he didn't know what to say. When a person was about to die, they would have a feeling. He had already sensed that his days were numbered. He saw his brother's frustration and helplessness. He also knew that his family had already thought of many ways for him. They had even thought of such a charlatan method. However, there was no cure for his illness. There was no one to blame but fate. Chapter 383. Anonymous Buyer. "I'm sorry, Master. There is really no problem." Xiao Jin was not surprised to see his answer. If they really couldn't find the reason, there was nothing they could do. If they took the initiative to cast the tactical matrix to find the person who put the curse on the Sushio, they could do it, but they would be involved in the karma of life and death. No matter what the reason was, this kind of tactical matrix made by hatred itself carried malice, and it could not be removed by others. The reason why she took the initiative to ask was because of Song Yanqing. If they couldn't find it, there was nothing they could do. She fell asleep, but suddenly woke up in the middle of the night. She opened her eyes and sat up from the bed. She felt something special and went to Song Yanqing. There was something dangerous. Song Yanqing was not ordinary to her now. Of course, she went straight to the Song family. It was just that it was inconvenient to do it in the middle of the night. She cast a tactical matrix and directly moved from the Mu family to the Song family's yard. She used a magic spirit seed. Ordinary. She went directly to the balcony of the Song family. As soon as she looked up, she saw Song Yanqing standing in the dark, wearing a black silk pajamas, looking down the stage with clear eyes. Suddenly seeing Xiao Jin appear, he was not surprised at all. He just smiled gently and said, "Why are you here?" Xiao Jin did not answer, and his eyes fell on the swimming pool. There was a body in the swimming pool, turned over and facing down. It was obvious that the body was cold. Ordinary people would be scared out of their wits, but the Song family was quiet and did not move at all. Xiao Jin looked up and asked him, "Where is our Yi?" Song Yanqing replied with a smile, "I put him to sleep." After saying this, he waved to Xiao Jin with a gentle look. "Come up. It's cold outside." Xiao Jin was only wearing a thin nightdress. Although it was summer, the night was a little cold. Xiao Jin frowned. Yes, he was now a spiritual speaker. He could make Yi not find out about this. The corpse in the swimming pool was not an ordinary person. It was an array master. Although he looked ordinary, there were no signs of him struggling before he died. It was obvious that he had died silently. Generally, array masters would not be so stupid as to directly enter someone else's territory to set up an array. They could completely control the array from afar. So, Song Yanqing directly used his ability to force the other party to come over. His ability was improving faster than she had imagined. She only asked him, "How did you do it?" Song Yanqing, "Huh? If you don't come up, I'm going down." Qiao Jin continued, "How did you do it?" Song Yanqing seemed a little puzzled. "What's wrong? I'm a spiritualist of speech. Is it strange that I can do this?" Qiao Jin was silent for a moment. "No, I just feel that you're more decisive in killing people than I thought." Song Yanqing's face was hidden in the night. The faint light of the Song family's house reflected his perfect face. It was so beautiful that even his eyes were shining. His voice was like the moonlight, with a cold smile. "He wanted to kill me." Qiao Jin nodded. "I don't blame you. I'm just afraid that you'll be in danger." Song Yanqing's expression eased a lot. He said, "Come up." Qiao Jin said, "We should dispose of the corpse. Don't let others find out. This array master's identity is not simple. He's from abroad." Song Yanqing, "I know." His voice was still cold, mixed with a trace of gentleness for Qiao Jin. As his voice fell, Qiao Jin saw the corpse in the swimming pool slowly melting. It was really melting, as if it had turned into a pool of water and finally merged into the pool. The pool water was clear, as if nothing had happened. Qiao Jin blinked. "Go to another pool." Song Yanqing chuckled. Chapter 384. "Come up here." He still said the same thing calmly. Qiao Jin said, "No, I want to go back." Since he was not in danger, there was no point for her to stay here. Song Yanqing's expression froze for a moment. In the night, his expression could not be seen clearly. Hidden in the darkness, the surroundings were a little cold. "Wait a minute." After he said this, he turned around and went into the room. When he came down again, Qiao Jin saw him holding a nightgown. It was a long black one. It looked like the one he was wearing. He took it and put it on Qiao Jin. "This is new. I haven't worn it before." He looked down at her. "Don't you want to know where this person came from?" Qiao Jin let him put the nightgown on her. She looked at the clear swimming pool and said, "I know where he came from. I told you just now." After a pause, she said, "It's someone from abroad." She guessed that the people from the He Li family had probably arrived, although she did not know why their first target was to attack Song Yanqing. Could it be that the exchange of fate was related to the He Li family? Song Yanqing tied the belt of the nightgown for her. Seeing that she did not object and was unusually obedient, he felt a little satisfied. "It's Joanna's people." His words were shocking. Qiao Jin raised her eyebrows. "You know the He Li family?" Song Yanqing stepped back and looked at her. His expression was very calm. "I didn't know before, but now I know. The He Li family has a partnership with us. I've seen Joanna a few times. Now I know what kind of existence they are." Qiao Jin suddenly understood. She was not surprised. The He Li family was not only a family of spiritual readers. On the surface, they were also prominent. It was not strange that they knew Song Yanqing. Qiao Jin was thinking, "Why did this formation master attack you?" Song Yanqing said softly, "I don't know. We can talk inside." Qiao Jin hesitated for a moment but did not refuse. She could learn some things about the Hurley family from Song Yanqing, as well as the suspicious points just now. She just didn't want to ask. Now that Song Yanqing wanted to say it, she was all ears. She actually had a question that she didn't ask. When she came, she felt a bit of the Rakshasa realm's aura, as if the devil had just left. Clearly, the Rakshasa realm was still pestering Song Yanqing. In the room, Qiao Jin sat down. Song Yanqing poured her a glass of water. Ah Tong was sleeping soundly. He would only wake up when Song Yanqing was willing. Qiao Jin held a glass of water while Song Yanqing sat opposite her and told her what had happened. In the middle of the night, Song Yanqing felt danger, so he woke up from his sleep. In fact, he did not do anything. He just materialized this feeling of danger and used the spiritual reader's ability to find the person behind the danger. It was an formation master. An formation master who wanted to kill him for some unknown reason. The other party used an ordinary formation master, but it could cause great harm to Song Yanqing. When Qiao Jin heard this, she asked a question. How did he come here? Song Yanqing smiled and said, I wanted him to appear, and he appeared. Well, it was as if he sensed my presence. He appeared in the courtyard directly. He looked more surprised than me. Of course, he would be more surprised than Song Yanqing. A spiritual reader's ability was to materialize anything and turn the impossible into the possible. According to Qiao Jin's thoughts, this formation master should have been influenced by Song Yanqing and forced to come here. Chapter 385. However, according to what Song Yanqing said, the other party had suddenly appeared. In other words, Song Yanqing's ability had begun to cross space. It was very terrifying for a person who had just awakened his ability to forcefully pull someone from afar over. Qiao Jin did not have a deep understanding of spirit speakers. She only vaguely remembered that one person was a spirit speaker. She was just a little surprised by Song Yanqing's ability's rapid improvement. An ordinary array master could already cross space. Then, in time, the person who changed his fate might appear automatically. Qiao Jin thought about it and asked him, have you ever used your ability to think about the person who changed your fate? Song Yanqing nodded. I have. He is now stronger than me, so I feel a resistance when I use my ability. Since there was resistance, he wouldn't continue. Qiao Jin just looked at him quietly. In such a bright light, his expression was still so gentle, like a celestial being. Song Yanqing saw Qiao Jin's strange gaze and said with a smile, is there a problem? Or is it that my ability is growing too fast? No. Qiao Jin looked away. She just felt a little strange. This strangeness came from Song Yanqing himself, but she didn't have any bad feelings about Song Yanqing. She also didn't feel that Song Yanqing had any ill intentions towards her, so she couldn't be bothered. Song Yanqing got up. Are you going back tonight? Qiao Jin nodded. I have to go back. If Fei Fei finds out tomorrow, how am I going to explain to her that I appeared at your house in the middle of the night? This didn't mean that there was a problem, but the Song family's door was tightly shut and there were bodyguards guarding it. There were also surveillance cameras around. How was he going to explain Qiao Jin's sudden appearance in the middle of the night? It would arouse the Song family's suspicion and uneasiness. Song Yanqing's eyes flashed. How are you going back? Qiao Jin, go back the way you came. After saying this, she smiled at Song Yanqing, which made Song Yanqing stunned for a moment. I'll go back first. Have a good rest. With that, Qiao Jin's figure disappeared. Song Yanqing stood in the same place. The lights were still bright, but it seemed that with Qiao Jin's disappearance, the night had gradually darkened. After a long while, he let out a low laugh. In the dark night, it was quiet and cold. When Qiao Jin got home, he realized that he was still wearing Song Yanqing's nightgown. I'll just send it back to him another day. She took it down and put it into the wardrobe. In the end, she heard someone talking about her from next door. The Ji family called. They're really calling. The flustered voice belonged to Qiao Fei. Mu Zhenming's voice was low. Don't panic. It might not necessarily be about Qiao Jin. After saying that, he picked up the phone. After listening to a few words, he was a little silent. Then he said, have you investigated this matter clearly? You can't just believe whatever she says. My wife adopted Qiao Jin from an orphanage. This matter is too ridiculous. The matter was exposed. Qiao Jin knew that the Ji family's troublesome matter would still come true. Since it was troublesome, it meant that there was something else going on in the Ji family. It's not very good. The child is resting now. It's not good to wake her up in the middle of the night. Okay. In that case, we'll talk about it during the day. Of course, Uncle Ji is my father's good brother. I won't let him down. However, these are all adult children after all. We have to listen to their opinions. Chapter 386. After hanging up, Mu Zhenming sighed. Chai Yueli told us about Qiao Jin. Dad guessed right. Ji Qiue wanted to divorce her, and she told us about Qiao Jin's existence to protect herself. Qiao Fei fiercely pinched Mu Zhenming's arm and immediately burst into tears. I knew that Chai Yueli was a vicious woman. Mu Zhenming rubbed his forehead. You don't have to think about such nonsense. Right now, it's Uncle Ji who wants to know if she's the granddaughter of the Ji family. He might bring Qiao Jin for verification tomorrow. This matter still depends on whether Qiao Jin agrees or not. Even if the Ji family acknowledges her, it doesn't matter. It matters a lot. I don't think Chai Yueli is worthy of being her mother. Mu Zhenming, we'll talk about it when she wakes up. After that, Mu Zhenming coaxed Qiao Fei with a few words and managed to coax Qiao Fei to stop. However, Qiao Jin didn't rest. Tomorrow, the Ji family would probably come and ask Qiao Jin to do a paternity test. So be it. She didn't care. It was just that she couldn't return to the Ji family. If the Ji family really caused her trouble, if necessary, she could be ruthless, but she couldn't think too badly of them. At least, Ji Pinggan looked like a peaceful old man. But, to be honest, Qiao Jin felt a little annoyed with her cheap parents. The next day, when they woke up early in the morning, it was an extremely extraordinary day for the Mu family. Ji Pinggan had brought someone to their door. This time, it was him and Ji Qiue. Unlike Ji Pinggan's excitement, Ji Qiue was sizing up Qiao Jin. He found it unbelievable. Qiao Jin didn't look like them at all. Why was Chai Yueli so sure that Qiao Jin was her biological daughter? Mu Xiangshan woke up early in the morning to read the gossip. He took a sip of hot tea and immediately let out a long sigh. Ah, Pinggan, you're already so old, but you still believe in such silly things. Your daughter-in-law said that Qiao Jin is her daughter, so it's true? Qiao Jin was adopted by Qiao Fei from the orphanage. We even have an adoption certificate. Mu Zichu had already come down from upstairs. When he saw the situation in the living room, he only observed the situation and didn't speak. Mu Zillion played games too late last night and was sleeping like a pig. No one woke him up, and he had already missed the opportunity to broadcast. Mu Zhenming and Qiao Fei were silent. Qiao Jin didn't come down and Ji Pinggan sat on the sofa. His heart was very excited. His expression was a little awkward and he felt embarrassed. Xiangshan, I know you might not believe it. When I heard her say it last night, I didn't dare to believe it either. But she said it with certainty. She said that Qiao Jin was her daughter. Mu Xiangshan narrowed his eyes. Then what's with this son? Didn't she say that he was your biological grandson? How did he fall into her hands? Ji Pinggan looked even more embarrassed. However, no one spread this news. Ji Qiue hesitated. Uncle Mu Xiangshan smiled. I underestimated Qiue. He has a lot of romantic debts outside. He doesn't even know about his own son. How can he get someone to replace him? He was complaining that he didn't even know that he had a child. Chai Yueli even took him away and treated him as her biological son. Instead, he lost his daughter. Ji Qiue's face turned red and he was too embarrassed to raise his head. After all, it was indeed embarrassing for such a thing to happen at this time. Chapter 387. Mph, Xiangshan, don't worry about him. I've already said that he's a good-for-nothing. When Ji Pinggan knew the truth, he couldn't wait to beat Ji Qiue with a few sticks. Thinking that they were all old now, it would be too ugly to beat. He didn't even know who gave birth to his son. He didn't even know where his daughter was. As a father, no one could be so muddle-headed. Ji Pinggan looked at Qiao Fei and Mu Zhenming. I didn't come here for anything else. I just want to take Qiao Jin to do a paternity test to get rid of this thought. I know it may be hard for you to accept, but if Qiao Jin is really my biological granddaughter, you can't bear to let her not know who her biological parents are for the rest of her life, right? Mu Zhenming and Qiao Fei, she knew it very early, even earlier than you. The two looked at each other, and Mu Zhenming spoke first. If it's true, of course we won't stop this kind of thing. We also understand how you feel, Uncle Ji. However, The child is so old. Shouldn't we respect the child's opinion? These things should be told to Qiao Jin, not to us. Ji Pinggan quickly nodded. Yes, yes, yes. Where is Qiao Jin? Qiao Fei whispered, she should still be sleeping. Ji Pinggan actually liked Qiao Jin. The child was good-looking and had an extraordinary temperament. After chatting with her a few times, he liked the girl very much. Unexpectedly, some things were really destined. In fact, apart from Chai Yueli, if Qiao Jin was really his biological granddaughter, it would be a good thing. What he regretted was that he didn't have a granddaughter, and there were many boys in the Ji family. As soon as Qiao Fei finished speaking, Qiao Jin came downstairs. She was not surprised to see the scene in the living room, but when Ji Qiue saw her, he stood up excitedly. Qiao Jin, was she really his daughter? Ji Qiue looked left and right. Although she didn't look like it, he was extremely satisfied with her. It was said that there were some bad rumors before, and she was close to the child of the Song family. She was simply the perfect daughter. Qiao Jin only nodded. Ji Pinggan looked at her, his eyes filled with excitement. Jin, Mu Xiangshan said leisurely, they said that you are the granddaughter of the Ji family and want to take you for a paternity test. Since everyone already knew, there was no need to pretend. Of course, in front of the Ji family, he still had to make a few announcements. Ji Pinggan didn't expect Mu Xiangshan to be so simple and crude. He was stunned for a moment. Qiao Jin, oh, sure. Ji Pinggan and Ji Qiue? Wasn't he a little too calm? They didn't even see a trace of emotion on Qiao Jin's face. Just like how the weather was today and how it was. Shouldn't they be shocked? His biological family had appeared. Qiao Fei mumbled, are you really going? Qiao Jin, we'll have to face them sooner or later. It doesn't matter who it is. Everyone, didn't this mean that it didn't matter who the biological child was as long as it was tested? Wasn't that too rude? Qiao Fei took a deep breath and stood up. I'll go with you. They just hoped that it was fake and that they might have seen wrongly. In this case, Qiao Jin was just his good daughter. The biological mother might have been forced to abandon the child, not like Chai Yueli who swapped children for glory and wealth. Chapter 388. Ji Pinggan was prepared to explain to Qiao Jin countless times, but he didn't expect Qiao Jin to be so simple and crude. Of course, the Mu family was also very straightforward. Qiao Fei and Mu Zichu accompanied Qiao Jin and the two of them to the hospital for a paternity test. Because it was too straightforward, Ji Qiue didn't know where to put his hands and feet when he saw them in the car. It was a blessing that his daughter, who had been living outside, was adopted by the Mu family. At least it wouldn't be too embarrassing when she came back. However, she looked cold and indifferent. She didn't even look at him, who might be her biological father, which made Ji Qiue a little dissatisfied. He was her father, after all. How could she not even greet him? Unfortunately, he didn't dare to say it out loud. Ji Pinggan was at a loss. At his age, he didn't know what to say in the face of such a thing. Along the way, he tried to talk to Qiao Jin and asked about Qiao Jin's past. Of course, most of the answers were actually from Qiao Fei. After all, Qiao Fei was the one who raised Qiao Jin. As his mother, she definitely knew what was going on. This matter was too sudden, and the Ji family didn't spread it. Others had only been paying attention to the fact that Ji Fan wasn't Chai Yueli's biological father, but they didn't expect an even bigger bomb. When they were about to reach the hospital, Ji Qiue received a call. He answered cautiously. Ji Pinggan got angry when he saw him like this. Who is it? Ji Qiue hurriedly said, it's Sikai. I don't know what happened, but Big Brother knows, about Qiao Jin. Ji Pinggan frowned. Didn't I tell you not to spread it before it's confirmed? Ji Qiue looked sad. I don't know who spread it either. It was most likely Chai Yueli. Qiao Fei frowned slightly. It was fine when he hadn't seen her, but now that he had, Qiao Fei felt that Qiao Jin's biological parents were irresponsible at all. A junior called, and he was so timid he was worse than her. Ji Qiue added, Sky said he'll come to the hospital later. Ji Pinggan frowned even more. He's here. What was he doing here? This has nothing to do with him. That being said, no one knew what Ji Sekai was thinking. Even if he wanted to come, no one could stop him. Who in the Ji clan could stop him? They were probably here to watch the show. The hospital where they carried out the blood test happened to pick the Song family's business. It was probably because everything here was the most advanced, and they had connections, so it saved them a lot of trouble. It would only take an hour for the report to come out. There was no need to waste too much time. Of course, this couldn't avoid a problem. Song Yanqing knew. First of all, regardless of whether the hospital was shameless or not, how could they let their young master know about this matter? Anyway, after the test was done, while waiting for the results, Xiao Jin received a call from Song Yanqing. She went outside to answer the call. Her voice was very calm. Hello. Song Yanqing's voice sounded a little calm. Why would the Ji family do a DNA test with you? Are you Ji Chiue's daughter? Xiao Jin hadn't told Song Yanqing about this. Xiao Jin, I think so. Song Yanqing was silent for a while. After a while, he said, Did you know in advance? Why didn't you mention it to me? His voice was very gentle, and he didn't mean to blame her. He probably didn't want to be too abrupt. Xiao Jin said lazily, It's just a small matter. There's no need to tell you. Chapter 389. She really didn't think that it was a big deal. It was as if she didn't care who her parents were at all. Song Yanqing heard the slight laziness in her voice. Like a kitten, it suddenly grabbed his heart. He raised his eyebrows and sighed helplessly. Only you don't care about these things. Don't you care about your biological parents? Xiao Jin, I don't care. They don't look outstanding. Song Yanqing, she was very direct, but Song Yanqing chuckled. Let me know when the results are out. I'm meeting with the He Li family, so I can't come over today. Xiao Jin, okay. After hanging up the phone, Xiao Fei came up and asked, Who was it? Xiao Jin glanced at her. Song Yanqing. Xiao Fei was a little confused. Oh, he looks for you often? Xiao Jin, not really. He just asked me why I did a paternity test with the Ji family. I didn't tell him about this. Xiao Fei was stunned. Why do you tell him everything? No. Xiao Jin thought for a moment. There's no need to tell him about such a small matter. He asked me because he knew. How is this a small matter? Xiao Fei raised her voice a little. She was afraid of attracting attention and said, This is a big matter. Jin, the Ji family is not like our family. I heard that many of their children are going to marry. If the Ji family forces you to marry someone you don't like in the future, you can ask Lord Song for help. Xiao Jin was a little helpless. I told you to watch less TV. Even if there's a marriage, are you going to watch the Ji family arrange it for me? Am I your daughter or their daughter? Even if it's true, I won't go back to the Ji family. Aren't you the one who raised me? Xiao Fei was stunned. Yes, thinking of this, she was a little happy. Then Mom will definitely not let this happen. While they were talking, a tall figure came out of the hospital elevator. He was wearing a suit with a cold and gloomy aura. His handsome appearance attracted the attention of many nurses in the hospital. When he walked over and saw Xiao Jin, he stopped and said with a playful tone, Xiao Jin? Xiao Fei was dazed for a moment before he recognized that this was the young master of the Ji family, Ji Sekai. Ji Sekai also looked at Xiao Fei and said politely, Auntie. Xiao Fei hurriedly said, Sky, what are you doing here? Ji Sekai said, I came to see if Xiao Jin is my cousin. Xiao Fei, can't you communicate properly if you're so direct? His gaze swept across the two of them. The results are out. Xiao Fei shook his head. No, so she might not be my cousin. Ji Sekai retracted his gaze, his smile somewhat gloomy. I hope not either. Xiao Fei immediately felt a little awkward. Whether or not she was his cousin, Ji Sekai's words seemed a little. Was he targeting Xiao Jin too much? Xiao Jin glanced at Ji Sekai and didn't want to talk to him. At this moment, the doctor came over with the test report. Xiao Fei heard the sound and immediately pulled Xiao Jin over. only to hear the doctor announce the results. Qiao Jin and Ji Qiue were indeed related by blood. Ji Qiue was Qiao Jin's biological father. Hearing the news, some people were happy, some were dumbfounded, and some sighed. Ji Sikai, who was standing at the back, heard the results and his face immediately darkened. After a long while, he revealed a smile with a hint of viciousness. Chapter 390. It's really, Ji Pinggan was excited, while Ji Qiue was a little confused and excited. After all, it was really proven that Qiao Jin was his biological daughter. He still felt that it was too sudden. It was like how he didn't have the concept of a daughter for so many years. Now that a daughter had popped out, how could it not be sudden? Good child. Ji Pinggan was so excited that his eyes were wet. When he reached out to put his hand on her arm, she avoided him. You don't have to be so excited. This isn't a big deal. Everyone, of course this was a big deal. This was a big deal for the Ji family. Ji Pinggan looked at her and said with heartache, all these years, it's been hard on you. Qiao Jin, it's not hard. Fei Fei raised me well. Qiao Fei's heart was filled with comfort when he heard that. Oh, right. I said the wrong thing. Ji Pinggan quickly reacted. All these years, I have to thank you properly, Qiao Fei. Qiao Fei's smile was a little forced. Old master, you don't have to be so polite, Xiao Jin, Ji Qiue carefully called out, but Qiao Jin didn't respond. Ji Pinggan and Ji Qiue weren't stupid. They sensed that Qiao Jin's attitude was cold and didn't seem to take this matter seriously. They knew that some things weren't what they thought. Ji Pinggan said, today's matter was too sudden, but since Qiao Jin is my granddaughter, she naturally has to acknowledge her ancestors. Qiao Fei, thank you for all these years. Qiao Fei couldn't smile anymore. Old master, do you want to ask Qiao Jin's opinion? Qiao Jin also looked at Ji Pinggan. Acknowledge her ancestors? Ji Pinggan looked at her lovingly and said, since you're my Ji family's granddaughter, you should return to the Ji family. Don't worry, Grandpa will make it up to you. Qiao Jin, there's no need. I don't plan to go back. Qiao Jin's straightforward rejection made Ji Qiue a little dissatisfied. Why? You are my daughter. Qiao Jin, the one who raised me for 20 years was Qiao Fei, not you. Ji Qiue said. We will give the Mu family a thank you fee. His words made Muzichu frown. Uncle Ji, do you think my parents are short of money? Is Qiao Jin an item to be traded? Ji Pinggan reached out and slapped Ji Qiue's head. If you don't know how to speak, then don't fart. He looked at Qiao Fei and said in a gentle tone, Qiao Fei, don't worry. That's not what I meant. I know that you raised Qiao Jin for 20 years, so you naturally have feelings for her. However, now that Qiao Jin has been proven to be the granddaughter of the Ji family, I hope that she can return to the Ji family. As for who she wants to follow in the future, it's up to her to decide. As adults, we won't force the younger generation to do anything, right? Qiao Fei felt that it made sense, although she was a little unwilling. However, it didn't seem like a big deal if Qiao Jin returned to the Ji family and acknowledged her identity. She looked at Qiao Jin, and Qiao Jin said, there's no need. You can tell anyone about this, or you can keep it to yourself. I don't want to go to the Ji family. Ji Pinggan was a little hurt by her rejection. Your father is here too. I'm your biological grandfather. Don't tell me you don't even want to see your mother. Qiao Jin, no. Everyone, that was a straightforward rejection. Chapter 391. If she doesn't want to, are you going to handcuff her back? Ji Sikai walked over and looked at Ji Qiue with a faint smile. Uncle, why don't you go home and deal with Aunt's matter? Ask her why she abandoned Qiao Jin and raised a son who isn't her own. Ji Qiue's face paled. You can't say that. Fan Zheng is my biological son, so he can be considered her son. Ji Sikai sneered. He didn't say anything, but his attitude was obvious. Qiao Fei felt embarrassed for the Ji family. Seeing that Qiao Jin wasn't willing to go back, Ji Pinggan's face darkened. We'll ask about your mother. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that Chai Yueli didn't want a divorce to protect herself, she wouldn't have mentioned Xiao Jin. If Xiao Jin wasn't willing to go back, seeing that Xiao Jin couldn't be convinced, Ji Pinggan could only give up. He brought Xiao Fei and the others, as well as Ji Sikai, to have a meal together. In such a short time, the news of Xiao Jin's incident had spread. This was because whenever they came to the hospital, there would always be people who would be curious and ask around. Although the hospital had moral integrity and couldn't reveal it, they couldn't hide it from the eyes and ears of others. The news that Xiao Jin was the granddaughter of the Ji family caused a stir in the city. While eating, Xiao Jin sent a message to Song Yanqing. Song Yanqing was busy, but she still replied to Xiao Jin, indicating that he would call her when he was free in the afternoon. She didn't talk much to ordinary people, and it was even more so at the dinner table. Ji Pinggan kept trying to talk to Xiao Jin, and Xiao Jin occasionally replied. Most of the time, it was Xiao Fei who explained. Halfway through the meal, Mu Chi Lian called Mu Chi Chu and howled, You guys didn't even ask me to come along." When he woke up in the afternoon and ate lunch, he was told by his grandfather that Xiao Jin had been taken away by the Ji family. In other words, Xiao Jin's matter had already been publicized, and he hadn't even seen it firsthand. However, he was in this house. For the first time, Musilian felt that playing games until midnight was a very bad decision. He didn't even see the first scene of the gossip. Pain, shock, disbelief. Musichu went to the side to answer the phone and sneered, "You're only up now? That's possible too." Musilian, "That's not the point. The point is, why didn't you call me?" Musichu, "What's the point of calling you here?" Musilian, "I really want to see their reactions and expressions at that time. What do you think? Is it going to be a scene of them hugging each other and crying?" Musichu, sometimes, Musilian's imagination was really on par with Xiao Fei's. Why did he think that Xiao Jin would have such an unreasonable scene? Musilian was still a little indignant. "That's too hateful. Where are you now? Are you at the Ji family's house? I'll rush over now." Musichu, "Don't. We'll finish eating and go home soon. Xiao Jin won't go to the Ji family's house." Musilian was stunned. "Huh? The Ji family doesn't want to acknowledge her?" "No, she doesn't want to acknowledge the Ji family." Musilian, "What's Xiao Jin thinking? Of course she wants to acknowledge it. The Mu family gives her pocket money, and the Ji family also gives her pocket money. Isn't she beautiful? When she goes back, she might even make grandfather Ji's heart ache and give her a huge sum of living expenses first. Can't she give it to me? What's she thinking? So unwise." Musichu. Chapter 392. The unwise Xiao Jin treated money like dirt. Even Ji Pinggan didn't know what she was thinking. Being able to return to the Ji family didn't mean that the Ji family was good, but at least there was a guarantee. Moreover, how could the Ji family's bloodline be left outside? This matter had already spread. If the Ji family didn't bring her back, others would think that the Ji family despised Xiao Jin. Although Ji Chiue was Xiao Jin's biological father, he had some opinions about Xiao Jin's refusal to listen to him. After dinner, he persuaded Xiao Jin, "At least go back with Dad to see Mom, isn't it?" Ji Chiue's voice was still soft and gentle, but Xiao Jin looked at him strangely when she heard it. That kind of gaze was as if Ji Chiue was talking about something incredible, but it was so clear that no one dared to look directly at him. It was as if he had nowhere to hide in front of Xiao Jin. Ji Chiue was immediately terrified. He didn't know why, but he was particularly afraid of this biological daughter who he had just learned about. Seeing Xiao Jin like this, Ji Pinggan knew that it was hopeless to persuade her to go back now. He seemed to be comforting himself. Maybe Jin just found out about these things and found it hard to accept. "I can understand. If you don't want to go back for the time being, I won't force you. But Grandpa has a wish. Can you call me Grandpa now?" He looked at Xiao Jin expectantly. This was an old man's wish. Most people couldn't bear to refuse. Xiao Jin replied coldly, "No, I'm not used to it. I can't say it." Even if she really had the self-awareness of a junior, The first person she should call Grandpa was Old Master Moo. Old Master Moo didn't mean what he said. After so many years of tormenting Xiao Fei, he didn't blame her too much. After so many years, their families had reconciled. Now that they lived together, Xiao Jin knew some of his temperament. Although he wasn't her biological grandfather, he was closer to her in terms of relationship. Ji Pinggan was her biological grandfather, but he had nothing to do with her. Her answer was actually polite, at least because she wasn't used to it. Although Ji Pinggan was disappointed, he could only sigh. I see. Ji Chiyue couldn't help but ask, why can't you even call him Grandpa? When she saw Ji Pinggan, she usually called him Old Master Ji. It didn't sound strange, but compared to Mu Chi Chu and the others who called him Grandpa Ji, there was a big difference. This was also what was strange about Xiao Jin. Ji Sikai also laughed sarcastically at the side. You're not even willing to call me grandfather? Is it so precious? Xiao Fei's father, she doesn't like that. Hearing that Xiao Jin didn't even call him Mu Xiangshan, Ji Pinggan felt much better. Xiao Fei's face froze. Xiao Jin didn't spoil him. She said coldly, how Fei Fei teaches her child is none of your business. Ji Chiyue was embarrassed by her direct rebuke. His face turned red. I am your biological father. Xiao Jin, oh. And then? Ji Chiyue was so angry that smoke came out of his head. It was fine if she didn't want to return to the Ji family, but her temper was definitely spoiled by the Mu family. The Ji family wouldn't spoil their child like that. Chapter 393. Forget it, forget it. Ji Pinggan had long known that Xiao Jin didn't call him Old Master. She even called Xiao Fei Fei Fei. Thinking of this, he felt much better. He had previously said that foreign education was the same. It didn't matter if the child didn't call him Old Master. It was a little regretful now, but it didn't matter. It was the first time Ji Sikai knew about this. He looked Xiao Jin up and down and thought of the last time. No wonder she didn't even call him brother. The corners of his lips curled up. He didn't know where he learned this strange temper from. Ji Pinggan wanted to talk about the old days with Xiao Jin, but found that Xiao Jin's attitude was cold. He knew that it would be the same even if he continued to talk. There was still a long way to go. At least he could go to the Mu family to see her. Moreover, the family really had to deal with Chai Yueli's matter first. Thinking of this, Ji Pinggan couldn't help but glare at Ji Chiyue. It was all because of this good-for-nothing thing. Ji Chiyue had been bullied by Xiao Jin, and now he was being scolded by his father. He was inhumane. When he went back, he still had to face Chai Yueli, who cried and threatened to hang herself, and a son who didn't know how to face him. He felt that the world was really unfair to him. Xiao Fei, I'll have to trouble you to take care of Xiao Jin. If you need anything in the future, just ask. Ji Pinggan faced Xiao Fei and earnestly entrusted him. Now that Xiao Fei knew that Xiao Jin really didn't want to go back, he was much happier. At the same time, he felt sad for Old Master Ji. Although his parents were good for nothing, the old man was not wrong. He just wanted his granddaughter to go back. If his granddaughter didn't go back, he wouldn't force her. He was already very open-minded. Xiao Fei was very respectful to Ji Pinggan. Uncle Ji, don't worry. Jin is fine in our family. You can come to see Jin more often in the future. I can also bring Jin to see you. She still knew how to do some things, which comforted Ji Pinggan a little. Xiao Jin didn't want to go back, but she didn't object to Xiao Fei's proposal to bring her to see Ji Pinggan. All right. Ji Pinggan glanced at Xiao Jin reluctantly, but he was still relieved in his heart. Fortunately, although her temper was a little strange, she looked outstanding. She was his granddaughter, and this was the most comforting point. At this moment, Ji Sikai took the initiative to say, "Third Grandpa, I'll send you back." Ji Pinggan didn't object and nodded. From the beginning to the end, Ji Chiyue was like an invisible person except for a few words. No one was willing to talk to him, and he was full of anger. After they parted ways, Xiao Fei brought Xiao Jin and the others back. He got into the car and complained to Ji Pinggan, "Dad, Look at her. What has the Mu family taught her? You don't even want to greet me, then what's wrong? Ji Pinggan spoke up for Qiao Jin. She just didn't want to call anyone. Wasn't she very polite to us? She didn't point at your nose and scold you, did she? If I had a father like you, I wouldn't acknowledge you either. Ji Qiue. Besides, how did you make her think it through? Ji Pinggan sneered. Your wife abandoned her own daughter for a son. She was raised by the Mu family for so many years. It's not your turn to criticize her. Why don't you go back and ask your good wife what's going on with Qiao Jin and Ji Fanjing? If she abandoned her own daughter in order to marry into the Ji family, then she's really a bad person. Even if Qiao Jin acknowledges her, you must still divorce her. Ji Qiue was stunned. He opened his mouth but didn't dare to refute. Chapter 394. Ji Sikai, who was driving in the front row, glanced at Ji Pinggan through the rearview mirror. Grandpa Ji, you don't have to be so angry. He chuckled. Go back and ask Auntie. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? Ji Pinggan didn't believe it. She didn't even know if she gave birth to a daughter or a son back then. Most importantly, when the matter was exposed, Chai Yuli's expression clearly showed that she already knew that Ji Fanjing wasn't her biological son. All these years, she hadn't thought of looking for Qiao Jin. It was only when she heard Ji Qiue say that he was going to get a divorce that she couldn't hold it in anymore. Although Qiao Jin was doing well, what if Qiao Jin wasn't adopted by Qiao Fei, but by someone else? More seriously, he might grow up without anyone to rely on. If he wasn't lucky, perhaps. Thinking of this, Ji Pinggan's heart was not at ease. He simply did not dare to imagine such a vicious and despicable woman. Ji Sikai said, Second uncle, maybe you just don't know. Although Ji Qiue was Ji Pinggan's eldest son, he was the second son in the entire family and was younger than Ji Sikai's father, so Ji Sikai called him uncle. You're a fool even if you don't know. You were played by a woman. I think you'll fall into the hands of a woman in this life too. Ji Pinggan was exasperated. He had always been a good-tempered person, but now he kept scolding Ji Qiue. This matter had really angered him. Ji Qiue couldn't raise his head from the scolding, especially in front of Ji Sikai. He couldn't even retort. This matter was indeed his fault. He had been kept in the dark by Chai Yuli for so long that his son and daughter didn't know. He was actually a failure as a father. Ji Pinggan shook his head. Back then, he had seen that Ji Qiue was a good-for-nothing, so he had decided to merge with the Ji family early. Otherwise, if his career was handed over to Ji Qiue, he would also be a prodigal. When Qiao Jin returned home, he saw the excited Musilian. How was it? Qiao Fei was confused by the question. What do you mean? Musilian was still excited. Is Qiao Jin going back to the Ji family? Qiao Fei, of course not. Jin is still living with us. Musilian immediately lamented, I knew she was a fool. If it were me, I would definitely go back and ask for pocket money from both sides. Every time I go to the Ji family's house, I get a big red packet. Isn't that great? Qiao Fei poked his forehead angrily. Do you think your sister is as greedy as you? Don't you hate the fact that it wasn't you who did this? If it was you, you would definitely have rushed back to the Ji family right now, right? Musilian was poked by her and shouted, Mom, you're wrong. I only suggested this to Qiao Jin because I know I don't have the chance. I didn't expect that he wouldn't be tempted by double his allowance. What a ruthless person. Qiao Fei, you only have money in your eyes your whole life. Chapter 395. The Mu family was really generous to their children. Although Mu Xiangshan was strict with Mu Zhenming in the past, he had never mistreated him financially. Their family's creed was that money was earned to be spent. The two sons of the Mu family were treated very well. Other than pocket money, they also bought cars and branded watches with the family's money. The Mu family was not as rich as the Song family and the Ji family, but it was also a new rich family. Musilian had dozens of limited edition sports cars. He did not wear branded jewelry, but he had a lot of them. This was the result of the Mu family restraining him. Otherwise, he would not be so arrogant among the young masters in the capital. Muzichu was much more self-disciplined. He was not interested in sports cars and the like. The few cars his grandfather and father gave him for his birthday were usually driven by Muzilian to show off. He had used his own money to invest in stock funds and all kinds of investments. The children of rich families did not only know how to squander. With resources, they would use all kinds of excellent congenital conditions to create more wealth. Of course, there was nothing they could do if they met someone who was really useless. However, for an outstanding family like the Mu family that had produced Muzichu and Muzilian, other than natural disasters, they would only get richer. When Qiao Fei raised Qiao Jin in the past, when they just returned to the capital, Qiao Fei went back first. Mu Zhenming did not have any relationship with this adopted daughter, but he did not mistreat her either. It was obvious that he bought a house casually. Qiao Fei usually gave her pocket money. Although it was not as much as the Mu brothers, it was really much more than ordinary people. Now that she was back in the Mu family, her pocket money was already on par with the twins. She just did not use it. Therefore, Qiao Jin's karma had nothing to do with the Mu family couple. This was because the two of them did not treat her well at all. Naturally, there was no karma involved. Muzichu and his brother had a little karma. It was probably because of this incident when Muzichu brought Qiao Jin to see Fengfei He. Now, with the changes of time, it had disappeared. Qiao Fei was such a gentle, naive, and sweet woman. She would only panic in front of Muzilian. Now that he heard his son's nonsensical words, he could only say resentfully, "Wait for your father to come back and deal with you." Muzilian said indignantly, "There's no justice in this world." Mu Xiangshan came out with a thermos flask in his hand. "Is the matter settled?" Qiao Fei threw the feather duster away and restrained himself a little. "It's done." When Mu Xiangshan saw that Qiao Jin was still here, he knew that she hadn't returned to the Ji clan. He couldn't help but sigh. This matter has nothing to do with Ping'an. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame Ji Qiue and his wife. Qiao Fei muttered, "I know. Old Master Ji is the same. He's already so old, yet he still encountered such a thing." Mu Xiangshan continued to ask, "What did you discuss? What will you say in the future?" Qiao Fei, "Just like that. Sometimes, old Master Ji comes to visit, and sometimes, I bring Qiao Jin to visit him." Mu Xiangshan nodded and waved his hand. "All right, it's not like our family can't afford to raise another mouth." Muzilian asked the key question. "Now that Qiao Jin is considered a member of the Ji clan, we're also relatives of the Ji clan. In the future, when we go to the Ji clan, will they give us red packets?" Everyone, Qiao Fei couldn't care less about Mu Xiangshan's presence. He picked up the feather duster and chased after Mu Qi. "Aren't you ashamed?" Mu Xiangshan added leisurely, "Just beat him to death. What's the point of raising him?" He went to knock on Qiao Fei's door and successfully put the blame on Muzilian. Muzilian, who was still playing games in the room, was beaten up by Qiao Fei for no reason. Qiao Fei called Qiao Jin. "Jin, where are you going in the middle of the night?" "Disco dancing. I'll be back in a while." "Fei Fei, don't worry. I'll be back soon." "Qiao Fei, are you so impudent now?" Muzilian held his face and cried, "What did I do wrong? She went to the disco, not me. Why did I get beaten up? Do you hear what she said?" Chapter 397. Qiao Jin hung up Qiao Fei's phone call and walked outside. She didn't go to the street this time. Last time, it happened suddenly. This time, she was prepared and ran directly to the suburbs. She got on the bus and went directly to the place farthest away from the capital. The driver saw her alone and kindly reminded her that the bus stopped at 11:30 and asked her to be careful. Qiao Jin nodded and walked away. Her figure gradually disappeared in the shadows that the dim yellow light couldn't reach. In the middle of the night, there were not many people in the suburbs, but there was an inexplicable sense of danger. Her five senses began to gradually blur again. She couldn't sense the direction of the danger. This time, it seemed to be different because she felt that someone was following her. The Feng family still didn't give up. She looked down. No, it wasn't the Feng family. Last time, 3 spiritual readers died. The Feng family would never do such a stupid thing again if they couldn't find out the reason. The asphalt road in the suburbs was covered with low bushes full of weeds. Few people usually came here. Basically, only cars entering the city or few people lived here. There weren't even many surveillance cameras on the roadside. She walked slowly alone. Suddenly, she heard a soft rustling sound as if something was moving under her feet. She just looked down and saw a few vines coming out of the bushes. They quickly wrapped around her ankles, and then pulled fiercely. Qiao Jin was pulled down. Her body fell heavily to the ground. The gravel of the low grass on the ground rubbed against her delicate skin. A huge force dragged her back. Thin streaks of blood suddenly appeared on his body, and the white t-shirt he was wearing also had traces of tears. It should have been a scene that made people panic, but they didn't hear an abnormal muffled groan. Qiao Jin was pulled into the dense forest inside and was hung up by a few vines. At this time, except for her face, there were more bloody marks on her body, but her eyes were still so calm that it made people feel a little scared. Someone walked out from the shade of the tree and looked up at Qiao Jin. It was quite interesting. You are not as powerful as I thought. This person was a foreign man with brown hair and black eyes, but he spoke authentic Huaxia language without even a trace of an accent. There were still a few vines growing out of his hand, which complemented Qiao Jin's vines. He looked at Qiao Jin and licked his lips. His smile changed. You're much more tasty than I thought. Qiao Jin didn't say anything. He just looked at him. After a long time, he was laughing in his heart. She was really lucky. Every time, there would be people rushing to die for her. He even gave him a spirit seed. Hey, Bruce, don't tell me you're thinking of something else. Another person walked out from under the shade of the tree. It was a girl of mixed blood. She had fair skin and a high nose bridge. She was extremely beautiful. Even if she wore heavy makeup, it didn't diminish her charm. It added to her gorgeous color. She looked at Qiao Jin, who was hanging on the tree. Her eyes were strange. A Chinese spiritualist, just a wizard who can predict the future. They are worried. Look, it's just SOSO. The man from before looked at the girl of mixed blood and smiled. Lucia, of course I have thoughts. Don't you think she's very tasty? As a woman, Lucia looked at Qiao Jin and curled her lips. She's just SOSO, Bruce. She's not beautiful. Bruce shook his head. No, no, no. I think she's very good looking. Chapter 398. While they were talking, Qiao Jin didn't make a sound on the tree. This made Bruce even more interested. Why isn't she screaming? Shouldn't she be afraid of screaming in panic? I like that. Lucia said, maybe it's not time for her to scream yet. Bruce, you have to be quick. I need her heart. Bruce said, Lucia, I don't like your behavior at all. You're eating a girl's heart for beauty, but it's not very effective. The Emperor said that once you can't hide it, you'll be killed by the backlash. What backlash? I'll let someone else take it for me. Bruce, hurry up. Don't dawdle. Joanna is still waiting for us. If she finds out that we're missing, we'll be in big trouble. They finished their sentences quickly and spoke in English. Qiao Jin understood. She looked at the girl. Her originally calm eyes actually emitted a strange light in the dark night. She murmured, I see. So the backlash is already here. That's why you're here to trouble me. That's great. I like people like you. Her clear words, coupled with her dangling figure, made one's hair stand on end in this quiet forest. Lucia had goosebumps all over her body. What nonsense are you talking about? She frowned and urged Bruce, hurry up. We don't have much time. When she said this, she didn't notice that there was a movement beside her. In the dark forest, there was a faint light under the illumination of the lights on the asphalt road in the distance. But now, it was so dark that not a trace of light could penetrate it. Even in such a creepy scene, they could still see Qiao Jin's face clearly. Something seemed to be moving around them. Under their feet, something was slowly gathering. It was very similar to the vines that Bruce used, but not quite. Lucia finally noticed that something was wrong. She looked down and saw traces of something crawling on the ground. She exclaimed, "Bruce, what array did you use?" Bruce's face stiffened. "I didn't use it." Didn't Lucia's exclamation prove that she didn't use the array either? Who used it? The two of them looked up at Qiao Jin, who was hanging on the tree at the same time. At this moment, the sound of the thin rope grew louder. Lucia and Bruce were horrified to discover that a huge figure was forming behind Qiao Jin's back. It was the broken branches and leaves of the forest that were originally moving. They seemed to be controlled by someone as they frantically gathered and spun together, gradually forming a huge black figure. It had 4 limbs like a human, but its face was closer to a Trent's. It did not seem threatening, but it emitted a deadly dark aura. What is this? WTF? What kind of array was this? Roar. What frightened them even more was that the gathered Treant actually roared loudly. That roar was like that of a giant abyss beast that seemed to be able to penetrate one's eardrums. The moment it finished roaring, it actually started running straight towards the 3 of them. At the same time, 7 or 8 vines extended from its body. It looked like a move used by Bruce, but the difference was that the vines were extremely fast, like sharp sword. "Bruce, is this one of your moves?" Lucia screamed. Qiao Jin, who was on the tree, immediately broke free from the vines and jumped down, dodging to the left in an instant. With a swoosh, a vine brushed past her ear. The rough edge of the tree mark easily cut off 2 strands of her hair that flew up because of her movements. Chapter 399. This time, Lucia and Bruce instantly realized that something was wrong. These vines even attacked Qiao Jin, and it wasn't made by Qiao Jin. But it was too fast. They were only formation masters, and all formations needed time. Qiao Jin's speed just now seemed to have broken through the human limit. Before they could be shocked, they could only scream and run to the edge. They were only a few meters away from the asphalt road, and they only needed to run out. They were already at the edge, but when they reached the periphery of the first tree, Lucia and Bruce found that no matter what they did, they couldn't run out. It was as if there was a layer of invisible shackles that trapped them here. Lucia was about to scream again when a vine directly penetrated her body with a swoosh. In an instant, blood spurted out. She couldn't understand how she died here so easily. She had the life substitution curse on her, and even if she encountered danger, someone else would die in her place. But she was really dead. The vines easily pierced through her body and then quickly pulled out. Like a useless puppet, she fell to the ground. Her eyes were wide open, and the focus was slowly dissipating. She died with her eyes wide open. Lucia. Bruce, who was beside her, only had time to let out a wail. He didn't have time to grieve at all. Another vine also sent him to heaven mercilessly. The only difference was that he only had time to turn around and come face to face with the vine. From the corner of his eye, he saw Qiao Jin running wildly in the forest at a speed that humans couldn't achieve, avoiding the attack of the vines. She wasn't a normal person. Now he finally understood. Unfortunately, it was too late to regret. The vine penetrated his heart. It was a one-hit kill, and it didn't show any mercy. He didn't know why. Like Lucia, he didn't know why he would die here. He didn't even know what kind of thing killed him. What killed him was naturally a weapon formed by karma. It was said that karma would create all kinds of accidents in order to kill Qiao Jin. In the human world, there were all kinds of normal accidents. But if there was no one around, karma would directly use the power of a spiritual reader to form all kinds of weapons. Because to them, in the world of spiritual readers, this was just an accident. Everything was within reason, as long as they could kill Qiao Jin. It didn't matter what kind of formation the two of them had on them, it was useless against karma. With such a huge debt of sin, it was enough to kill them mercilessly and become Qiao Jin's scapegoats. Qiao Jin was very fast, so fast that he could only dodge the attacks of the vines. The tree man roared as it chased after Qiao Jin, as if it did not care if its voice would attract the attention of others. Of course, there was a formation around it. Unless someone barged in directly, it would either automatically end when the time was up, or it would only return to normal after killing Qiao Jin. Red dots flickered in her eyes as array points appeared around her. Following her movements, the array points quickly connected to each other, forming a peculiar transparent defensive array. With a few swooshing sounds, the red lines connected to form a natural cage, trapping the treeman's movements. But this only slowed down the treeman's movements. It leaped over the red lines without slowing down. The only difference was that the vines that shot out from its body seemed to be burned the moment they came into contact with the red lines, emitting all kinds of flames. Chapter 400. The flames quickly ignited and extinguished. It seemed to be a confrontation. Qiao Jin was very powerful, but this thing was a weapon of karma. It was not something that other array masters could compare to. It could automatically ignore many of Qiao Jin's attacks and defenses. Qiao Jin estimated that although he already had 2 scapegoats, it was still not enough. Without hesitation, she shot out a wisp of black aura from her fingertip, which silently merged into the array. The burning became more and more severe, and the speed of the vines was greatly reduced. The Trent's speed was not as fast as Qiao Jin's, and for the time being, Qiao Jin was relieved. Each time, the backlash was stronger than the last. After this time, who knew what the next time would be? Suddenly, she felt something again. Something was trying to break in. However, the moment she barged in, she heard a scream. That scream was extremely sharp, as if it came from some kind of monster, but it instantly caused the invisible bindings to dissipate. The dim yellow light from the asphalt road gradually penetrated through. The treeman stopped all its movements and gradually returned to its original appearance of broken branches and leaves, spreading all over the ground. Qiao Jin looked at the pile of wreckage on the ground and couldn't help but laugh. How lucky was she? It wasn't enough that the 2 of them had died. Someone had actually been stupid enough to barge into the karma spell formation. This person was incredibly strong, and had most likely thought that there was some kind of enchantment around him. He had wanted to force his way through, but in the end, he had lost one of his lives, blocking the backlash for Qiao Jin. The other party probably hadn't died, but the item that replaced his life had gone cold. Karma had penetrated his body, so there was an 80% chance that he wouldn't be able to survive. However, it wasn't hard to guess what kind of person would need a substitute item. Most likely, they were here to look for Lucia and Bruce, but ended up here by mistake. Ah! Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream came from the magnificent room. A foreign man in a luxurious suit was howling on the ground with a face full of pain. His body seemed to have been penetrated by something and started to burn automatically. Joanna, Joanna. He only had time to let out a scream before the door was pushed open. Joanna rushed in with a few people, and her expression immediately turned into horror. Eddie! She screamed and saw Eddie's body ignite in flames. She wanted to activate the array immediately, but she felt an overwhelming destructive power. It was a feeling she had never felt before. Even the great emperors she had met did not give her such a feeling. The pressure almost suffocated her, and even her breathing stopped. That ball of fire seemed to have come from hell. No one could stop the destruction of heaven and earth. Amidst Eddie's blood-curdling screams, she could only watch as Eddie was engulfed by a ball of fire. Eddie could only manage to say, "It's her." Before he could finish his sentence, he turned into a pile of ashes. The flames immediately disappeared, and the room became quiet. Apart from a pile of dust on the ground, there was no trace of anything. When the fire disappeared, Joanna and the group of people behind her were drenched in cold sweat. Their bodies almost went limp. The flame was not extraordinary, but it seemed to have the power to destroy the gods. He didn't even know why Eddie had died. After a long time, Qiao Anna woke up with sweat all over her body. Her body trembled as if it was a stress reaction. 2 lines of tears flowed down her beautiful face. Then, she screamed in a hurry. Eddie! Eddie! Her voice was heart-wrenching and filled with despair. Because Eddie was her younger brother. Chapter 401. Qiao Jin had just walked out of the dense forest when she suddenly felt something different. She looked up and saw the dazzling light. She squinted slightly and saw Song Yanqing standing under the street lamp. He was wearing a long beige trench coat. Standing there, he seemed to blend into the darkness. He was still a handsome and elegant man, but the coldness in his body was getting heavier. Only that pair of eyes, no matter when, were bright and resplendent. He looked at Qiao Jin. After a long silence, his voice was inexplicably deep. "You're injured." Qiao Jin replied, "It's just a superficial wound." "Why are you here?" Song Yanqing couldn't sense that she was in danger, because his ability wouldn't work on Qiao Jin. Qiao Jin didn't look very good now. When she came out, she wore a t-shirt and jeans casually. At this time, the t-shirt wasn't tattered, but it didn't look good either. A large part of the sleeve was torn and fell directly. There were small red marks on her wrists, neck, and shoulders. Some of them had oozed blood, but now they had coagulated. She looked embarrassed and delicate. In fact, they were all superficial injuries. At that time, some of her perception was blocked by the backfire. She didn't know who was behind this. She deliberately let the other party catch her because she wanted to know who the other party was. Now it seemed that it was the same thing. The other party died too quickly. Qiao Jin didn't even have a chance to take revenge. Song Yanqing had always been gentle and cold in front of her. At this time, he blended into the darkness and there was a different kind of strong and dangerous aura. "I can't sense that you are in danger, but I can know the movements of those people." His calm tone made Qiao Jin smell an inexplicable sense of danger. She tilted her head and thought for a moment. "Why are you angry?" Song Yanqing, he didn't know Qiao Jin's movements, but he could know the movements of others. He had been monitoring Qiao Anna and the others. He was a spiritualist, so he could know what he wanted to know. Tonight, he felt that the 2 people brought by Qiao Anna were a little strange, and he sensed that they were using power. He subconsciously called the Mu family. In the end, he learned that Qiao Jin went out with the excuse of dancing. He knew that Qiao Jin would never go to such places. She was doing something behind the Mu family's back. He wasn't worried that Qiao Jin was in danger. He just wanted to take a look. In the end, he thought too much. Qiao Jin was still in danger. He came here based on his intuition as a spirit master of speech. Those people's auras were gone, and he saw a pitiful little girl in a sorry state. Perhaps she wasn't a pitiful little girl, but she was in his eyes right now. Hearing her naivety, he frowned and sighed. He walked over to Qiao Jin and grabbed her wrist. "What do you need to do? Why are you in such a sorry state?" Qiao Jin did not think much of it. Compared to the injuries she had suffered in the past, this was nothing. "I'm also injured." Song Yanqing repeated this sentence. She had always done things with a sense of propriety, but she had made herself like this. He held Qiao Jin's hand and wanted to use his spiritualist's ability. However, Qiao Jin said, "Your ability can't be used on me." Song Yanqing, his cheeks twitched, and he could only sigh. "I'll take you back and use some modern methods." "Qiao Jin, what methods?" Song Yanqing pinched her arm. "Apply medicine." His tone was harsher than usual, but still gentle. He couldn't do anything to Qiao Jin. Just like how she refused to tell him what had happened to her this time. What could he do? Chapter 402. Song Yanqing came here directly. In other words, there was no one to send him or pick him up. At this time, it was better to go back directly than to wait for someone to pick him up. Song Yanqing could use his ability to return to the Song family, but he couldn't take Qiao Jin with him. Qiao Jin didn't want to use the spirit seed this time. He had to save it. She used a more down-to-earth way. "There's a bus in front." Song Yanqing, This thing only existed in Song Yanqing's ears. When they walked to the bus stop, the 11:30 bus arrived. Song Yanqing was a clean freak. Countless people got on and off the bus. He even found it difficult to get to the door. Qiao Jin took him up. At this time, there was no one in the suburbs. When the driver saw the two of them, he almost thought that he had seen a ghost. How could a ghost be so good-looking? Song Yanqing blocked in front of Qiao Jin and subconsciously wanted to pull Qiao Jin forward. The driver behind the guardrail suddenly said, "Hey, handsome, put in a coin." Even if he was handsome, he couldn't take the overlord's car. Song Yanqing, who had always been otherworldly, really didn't have the concept of putting in a coin. Because he hadn't even taken the subway, he thought that the driver would collect money after he got on the bus. It was just like other modes of shopping. Song Yanqing paused. There's no coin, no matter how handsome he was. The driver felt that there was something wrong with him. Don't you know how to scan the QR code? We support QR code scanning now. Qiao Jin was a little more otherworldly than him. After all, he often walked outside and knew what to do. She took out her bus card and helped Song Yanqing scan the QR code. She calmly explained, he hasn't taken a bus before. The driver, the rich young master, experienced the life of a commoner. He saw a living person. Looking at Song Yanqing's clothes, he knew that he wasn't an ordinary person. However, the driver saw that Qiao Jin was injured and asked, "Miss, are you okay?" Two youngsters fighting in the wild. Qiao Jin said, "I'm fine. I was scratched by a tree branch." Song Yanqing pulled her to the back of the carriage. When it was his turn to sit, he hesitated. This car seemed to have been ridden by many people. Has it been sterilized? Qiao Jin wasn't that particular. He sat down and said, "If you don't want to sit, you can stand." She understood Song Yanqing. She knew that sometimes he didn't do it on purpose. Qi Lian and Qi Chu were also very misophobic. They didn't sit with others when they went out. Of course, in order to help Song Yanqing stand firm, she grabbed Song Yanqing's wrist. Song Yanqing didn't need her to hold on to him to stand steadily. The car started to move unsteadily. He looked down at the slender and fair hand on his wrist and felt that this was actually not bad. The chauffeur saw the two of them from the rearview mirror and felt that the car was not an extended Rolls-Royce. He felt sorry for the young master. Then he rolled his eyes. It was the first time in his life that he took a bus, but the bus didn't go straight home. After getting out of the car, Song Yanqing still couldn't bear it and asked Ah Tai to pick him up midway. "Ah Tai, young master, weren't you reading at home? When did you go out? Why didn't I know?" Ah Tai suddenly felt that he was too lazy as a bodyguard. He didn't even know when the young master went out. It was over. He would be scolded by the young master. He looked at the car coming to pick up the young master in fear. Then, he saw Qiao Jin standing beside him. Chapter 403. Seeing Qiao Jin in such a sorry state, Uden started to doubt his own eyes. Song Yanqing didn't say much and took Qiao Jin to the car first. He stopped Qiao Jin from going home. "Let's go back to my house first. It'll be hard to explain if you go home like this." Qiao Jin thought about it and agreed. Her injury was caused by the backlash, so it took a long time to recover. In fact, the wounds were already healing. Listening to their conversation, RGE even suspected that his young master had done something to Qiao Jin. When they reached home, Song Yanqing asked Ardan to find some alcohol and medical supplies for disinfection. Then, he sent Ardan out. Song Yanqing looked at Qiao Jin, who was lying on the sofa. He didn't mind that she was a little dirty. He only said softly and gently, "I'll help you disinfect first. After applying the medicated alcohol, you can change your clothes before going back. I'll ask Ardan to buy some women's clothes for you." "Oh, okay." Qiao Jin didn't mind lying down so that he could apply the medicated alcohol. Although she could recover on her own, the medicine was still useful. Her body had just become stronger. It didn't mean that she had really become a different person. There were thin scratches on both sides of her arms. Song Yanqing's eyes darkened when he saw it. He said while disinfecting her, "Bear with it even if it hurts." "Qiao Jin, it doesn't hurt." Song Yanqing was angry and amused at the same time. He felt a little stifled in his heart. When he thought of the people who hurt her, he couldn't help but have some dark thoughts. He just frowned and said after a long time, "The people who hurt you are from the Hurley family." "Qiao Jin, probably. They are all foreigners." Song Yanqing's eyes flashed and his tone softened. "Where are they?" "Qiao Jin, dead." Song Yanqing's eyes turned cold. "Qiao Anna sent someone to do it." "Qiao Jin, probably not. They said that they came out behind Qiao Anna's back." "I'm not too sure. Anyway, he was already dead." He didn't say another word. Qiao Jin still didn't say why she went there. Fine, if she didn't say anything now, he wouldn't ask. After applying the ointment to his arms and shoulders, Qiao Jin lifted his clothes. "There's more here." There were also some abrasions on his waist. Song Yanqing was caught off guard and lifted her clothes. Although he didn't see anything he shouldn't have, his mind went blank for a moment when he saw her soft and slender perfect waistline. Her round belly button rose and fell as she breathed. This was the first time he had seen a girl's body. It was porcelain white and lustrous, just like the texture of milk. Qiao Jin saw that he didn't say anything and glanced at him. Suddenly, he thought of something and covered his body with his clothes again. "Oh, I'm a girl." It didn't seem normal between a man and a woman. In fact, she really didn't have this concept. In the past, she was high and mighty. Not to mention the difference between men and women, she looked at everyone the same. If she hadn't realized that there were some differences in the contact between men and women in modern society, she wouldn't have realized that this behavior was a little abnormal. Song Yanqing, however, chuckled. He was shaking all over. "You just realized that you are a girl now?" Then he said, "I just helped you apply the ointment." This is very normal. They had already held hands and touched faces. In fact, they had already gone beyond the rules of friends. However, Song Yanqing knew that this might be her concept of friends. In the future, when she met other friends, she would most likely not take them seriously. Because in her heart, there was no concept of feelings. Chapter 404. Qiao Jin felt that it made sense, so he didn't care about it. In Qiao Jin's memory, there was no concept of falling in love at all. She had never been in love, and her parents only told her not to fall in love early. No one taught her what the normal distance between men and women was, and no one reminded her that her intimate behavior with Song Yanqing was a little charming. In fact, there was still a difference. It was just that Qiao Jin couldn't figure it out. She didn't like to contact anyone, including Musilian and Musichu. At most, they were the juniors under her protection. Only Song Yanqing, whom she regarded as a friend, didn't feel that these things were abnormal. In addition, Song Yanqing deliberately guided her from the beginning to the end. She measured the world with her way of doing things, just like how she didn't call Musilian and the others brother. Song Yanqing didn't have any feelings for Qiao Jin because of this. Even if he did, he wouldn't show it. He naturally helped Qiao Jin disinfect the medicinal wine. She couldn't take a bath after applying the medicinal wine, but in fact, Qiao Jin's wound had already begun to recover in the process of applying the medicinal wine. There were even some shallow traces left. Song Yanqing was a little surprised by Qiao Jin's recovery speed, but it made him feel a lot more relieved. Not wanting Qiao Fei and the others to worry and ask more questions, Qiao Jin called back before she came back and said that she had something to do. After returning home, she wasn't used to the dirt on herself. After taking a bath and changing into pajamas, she greeted Qiao Fei and the others and said that she was back. Qiao Fei and the others didn't know the truth. They only thought that Qiao Jin really went out to play. They were worried and didn't know how to discipline her. Could it be that the Ji family's matter was still a little irritating to her? When Qiao Jin woke up in the morning, Qiao Fei told her a piece of embarrassing news only to the Mu family except for her. Chai Yueli came to the door. She was crying in the living room, and he was too embarrassed to chase her away. Xiao Fei didn't know how to get along with her, and he couldn't hide it from Xiao Jin. He could only wake Xiao Jin up. After Xiao Jin woke up, he washed his face and brushed his teeth. After the morning washing was done, he walked out slowly. Chai Yueli cried for as long as she was busy. This gave Xiao Jin a deeper understanding of the saying that all women were made of water. When Chai Yueli, who was dressed luxuriously, saw Xiao Jin coming down from upstairs, her sobbing suddenly erupted like a flood. Jin. That voice was so sorrowful that it sounded as if it had encountered something very sad. It was enough to break one's heart. Beauties always looked good when they cried. Xiao Fei's expression was strange and somewhat awkward. Musilian wanted to watch the show, but he couldn't stand Chai Yueli's cries. He found an excuse and slipped away like his brother. Mu Xiangshan sat at the front line of the gossip. He was as steady as Mount Tai. He just wanted to watch the show. Xiao Jin looked at Chai Yueli and said gently, "Don't be like this. You recognized me the last time we met, but I didn't see you so sad." Chai Yueli's expression froze. Some truths were always so piercing to the heart when spoken out. Chai Yueli cried awkwardly and explained, I didn't recognize you the last time. I went back and thought about it for a long time before I felt. She didn't believe what she said. How could she be sure that the other person was her own daughter after thinking about it for a long time? If Xiao Jin didn't look exactly like her mother, she probably wouldn't have recognized her. Xiao Fei was a little angry. Chapter 405. Why are you looking for me? Xiao Jin's expression didn't change from beginning to end. It was as if he was looking at a stranger. Chai Yueli now knew that Ji Qiyu wasn't lying. This daughter was really difficult to deal with. Her eyes were hazy with tears. I had my reasons for what happened in the past. When I gave birth to you, I really didn't know who took you away. I've been looking for you for many years. It wasn't easy for me to find you. I want you to come back to the Ji family with me. Xiao Fei couldn't help but say, you didn't know that the child was taken away after you gave birth. Which hospital is so irresponsible? Sue them. Chai Yueli was speechless. Xiao Fei then looked a little confused. That's not right. What's going on with Ji Fanjing? One question after another pierced Chai Yueli's heart. Fortunately, Chai Yueli was already prepared when she came. She cried sadly as she made up a story of the past. She said that she didn't know what happened back then. Xiao Jin was taken away by someone. Coincidentally, Ji Qiyu had a lover outside who couldn't afford to raise a son. The other party didn't want to marry Ji Qiyu, so she gave the son to Chai Yueli. Chai Yueli thought that this was God's compensation for losing her daughter, so she brought the child back to the Ji family. Of course, the lover's story was true. The Ji family had already called to verify that Chai Yueli was indeed carrying another lover's child. However, Ji Qiyu didn't know about the child's existence at all because that lover had broken up with him for a few months. When they broke up, he didn't know that the other party was pregnant. The other party had found true love and didn't want to marry Ji Qiyu. Chai Yueli found her and hit it off, so she took the child over. This story might be true, but it was only about the lover who gave the child to Chai Yueli. After all, it was confirmed by a phone call. How did she do it? What reason did she use? Was it a threat or some other method? If the two of them didn't say anything, who would know? However, when such a precious boy returned to the Ji family, the biological mother didn't care about him or coveted his wealth. Was it really because she was in love with her current husband? Xiao Jin only blinked after hearing this. So? Her rhetorical question almost made Chai Yueli dumbfounded. Xiao Jin's next words were even more heart-wrenching. What has what you're saying got to do with me? Chai Yueli, I just want you to come back to the Ji family, and if you. As she spoke, tears fell from her eyes. It was Xiao Fei's first time seeing someone cry more than her. The tears in her eyes were as if they were free. Especially when the grief was on point, it was more than enough to compete for an Oscar. When you Chapter 406. Mu Xiangshan sipped his tea leisurely. Millimeter, wonderful. Chai Yueli wanted to pull Qiao Jin's arm, but Qiao Jin avoided her. Her tears continued to fall. Jin, can you go back with me? Qiao Jin was merciless. Did old Master Ji tell you that as long as you persuade me to go back, he won't let Ji Qiue divorce you? Chai Yueli froze. How did she know? Actually, it was obvious why Chai Yueli had come at this time. If Qiao Jin didn't want to go back, the Ji family would definitely think of ways to prevent the Ji family's bloodline from wandering outside. At this time, Chai Yueli naturally had to step in. It was a pity that the Ji family trusted Chai Yueli's difficulties, but Qiao Jin knew clearly and wouldn't believe her. Whether she was sincere or not, she could tell from the way she looked at this woman. Chai Yueli corrected something that wasn't important and stammered, "What, Ji Qiue? That's your father, your biological father." Qiao Jin, "Phut, Chai Yueli." No wonder Ji Qiue wasn't satisfied with Qiao Jin when he returned home. This girl's attitude was very difficult to deal with. What was wrong with returning to the Ji family? She had money and rich and powerful relatives. What was there to be unhappy about? Chai Yueli almost couldn't maintain her performance. Yes, she had been heartbroken when she abandoned Qiao Jin back then. But at that time, Ji Qiue, that piece of trash, had clearly said that if she didn't have a son, she wouldn't have a chance to marry into the family. How could she be willing to be a mistress for the rest of her life? Even if Ji Qiue was a piece of trash, he was the only piece of trash she could get into this circle. She had known since she was young that she was beautiful. Their family was like this, so she had never been willing to stay in a small place for the rest of her life. She had sacrificed a lot to get into Ji Qiue's good books. If she didn't want to marry into a rich family, who would be willing to marry such a good-for-nothing? She wanted glory and wealth. What she wanted was her superior wife's life. Now that things had been exposed, even if she was panicking, she couldn't let the divorce happen. She just needed to persuade Qiao Jin back. She just needed to persuade Qiao Jin back. She hadn't seen her biological mother for so many years. How could she not miss her? But now that she saw Qiao Jin, she finally understood that this girl was indeed her biological child. Just like her, she had no familial ties at all. Therefore, she would not acknowledge this mother at all. She saw the calmness in the girl's eyes, and she also saw a trace of mockery under her calm eyes. She suddenly did not know how to face Qiao Jin. He couldn't cry anymore. She stopped crying and wiped the corners of her eyes with a tissue. Her tone calmed down. "So, you don't want to go back to the Ji family with me, right?" Qiao Jin, "Yes." Chai Yueli, "Have you ever thought that I'm your biological mother?" Qiao Jin, "I don't really want to say that back to you, but I'll be honest with you. I've never thought about it." A trace of despair finally appeared in Chai Yueli's eyes. Qiao Fei couldn't bear to see it. But she knew that she was wavering. How could she face Qiao Jin? Although Qiao Jin had been with her for 20 years and had never suffered, but she couldn't erase the fact that Chai Yueli had abandoned Qiao Jin. Just as Qiao Fei was thinking this, he saw Chai Yueli turn around and look at him. Qiao Fei, she was afraid. Chai Yueli grabbed Qiao Fei's wrist and said emotionally, "Qiao Fei, persuade her. Persuade her to go back, okay?" Chapter 407. I know you want her to live a good life too. She can return to the Ji family and become the official eldest daughter of the Ji family. Isn't that good? She knew Qiao Fei's temper. It was rumored that Qiao Fei had a soft temper and was easy to manipulate. This time, Qiao Fei was out of her expectations. She broke free from Chai Yueli's arm and said with an awkward expression, "Miss Chai, we have already discussed this matter. We respect the child's opinion on this matter." Chai Yueli's eyes turned sharp and became aggressive. "Qiao Jin is my biological daughter. She doesn't want to return to the Ji family because of you. Qiao Fei, you're also a mother. Don't you know how a mother feels? Who doesn't want their child to live a good life?" She suddenly targeted Qiao Fei, which surprised Qiao Fei. When she heard this, She was sure that Chai Yueli was distorting the truth. She panicked and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? We didn't do anything." She felt guilty. In fact, she had always said that she didn't want Xiao Jin to return to the Ji family. However, that was because she was worried that Chai Yueli would treat Xiao Jin badly. It was also because of the fact that Chai Yueli had abandoned Xiao Jin. Chai Yueli saw her hesitation and immediately grasped the key point. "You're hesitating? You did say something to Xiao Jin, didn't you? You're so vicious." Xiao Fei, a strong force, suddenly grabbed Chai Yueli's arm and forced her to turn around. She turned around and saw Xiao Jin smiling. "Let go." This sentence made Chai Yueli's heart jump and she couldn't help but let go of Xiao Fei. Xiao Jin said, "Miss Chai, you're really rude. I'm 20 years old and I know very well how Fei Fei treats me. You should know who's more vicious. You can lie to the Ji family, but don't lie to us. There are some things that I don't want to say directly. You should know very well why you swapped Ji Fanjing and me back then. People can help you hide some things because of temporary benefits, but when they promise you greater benefits, do you think Ji Fanjing's biological mother will help you hide it?" Chai Yueli's pupils shrank and she almost couldn't help but take 2 steps back. But that would expose him. She saw that Xiao Jin's eyes were clear and bright. She knew all about it. What did she know? It was impossible for anyone to know about this. She had been very careful back then. Even if that lover had some guesses, it was impossible for him to know the truth. "I didn't abandon you. I didn't switch." She vehemently denied it, but Xiao Jin said, "I'm not interested in listening. You can pretend that you don't have a child like me. You and Ji Chiue don't care about me. I don't want to see you disturbing my life again. Just like how you made up your mind the moment you saw me. If it weren't for the fact that Ji Fanjing's matter had been exposed, you wouldn't have come looking for me. How ugly would it be if they insisted on diverting the matter? You've been Mrs. Ji for so many years. Why don't you know how to pay more attention to your face?" Her tone was very light, as if she was talking to an unreasonable person. She used a coaxing tone. But for some reason, it made people feel cold. Because this daughter was even more heartless than Chai Yueli had imagined. Xiao Fei saw that Chai Yueli didn't dare to speak after hearing Xiao Jin's words. He guessed the truth of the matter back then and immediately snorted coldly. This woman was actually trying to shift the blame. She was indeed ruthless. "Jin, please don't go back with her." Chapter 408. Chai Yueli came to the Mu family to persuade Xiao Jin but failed. Her daughter was like a hard bone to chew. There was no part of her body that could be chewed on. No matter what she said, Xiao Jin did not take it seriously. He was even colder than he appeared that day. Chai Yueli left the Mu family home trembling. She was afraid. But she could not give up. If Ji Fanjing's matter had not been exposed, things would not have turned out this way. Xiao Jin was her only support now. She had to insist on this point. If the Ji family wanted Xiao Jin to go back, they had to let her stay. Mu Xiangshan did not say a word while Xiao Jin and Chai Yueli argued. After Chai Yueli left, he snorted and said, "So heartless." Xiao Jin said, "It's not heartless. I just did the same thing to her." Mu Xiangshan said, "Outsiders won't think so. They will think that you are too heartless for not even acknowledging your biological mother." Xiao Jin smiled. "What do outsiders think have to do with me? If they have any opinions, they can tell me in person." "Yes, yes, yes." Xiao Fei supported her. "Jin, don't be afraid. Mom is behind you. If someone says something, we will help you explain. She doesn't really want to take you back. She just doesn't want to divorce Ji Chiue." Mu Xiangshan laughed and went out for a walk with his hands behind his back. At this moment, Xiao Jin's WeChat message popped up. "He Yao, urgent news. Are you there?" Xiao Jin looked down and said to Xiao Fei, "I have something to do. I will be back tonight." Xiao Fei was stunned. "Why are you going out? You are out every day during the summer vacation." Do you want to accompany me to Europe? Not only could she relax, but she could also avoid the Ji family's troubles. Qiao Jin, I don't have time for now. I will go out first. Bye, Fei Fei. Qiao Fei, sigh. Although she had rejected the Ji family, she was still that rebellious girl. Qiao Jin replied to He Yao's message as he walked. It was Jin Jinyo, speak. He Yao, didn't I tell you about the He Li family? Something big happened today. Their family lost 3 spiritual readers, and one of them was killed in his room. Apparently, they haven't even found the murderer yet. Now, they're looking for the murderer everywhere, demanding an explanation from the spirit group. He Yao, one of the people who died, was her younger brother. It will probably be chaotic for a while. It was Jin Jinyo. Are you afraid of her? He Yao, I'm not scared. It's troublesome. He Yao, Joanna is now crazy. We are afraid that she will secretly attack ordinary spiritual readers. It was Jin Jinyo. I suggest sending her back to her country. He Yao, it would be great if it were that simple. Now that Qiao Anna's brother has died in the country, it is indeed a troublesome matter. This is also an inconceivable matter for us. Her brother was killed in a hotel right in front of her, and the murderer has not been caught. If such a terrifying person appears in the capital, not only them, but our spirit group will also be in danger. Qiao Jin knew that the unlucky person who forced his way into the array last night was Joanna's brother. Otherwise, she would have sensed someone who was so strong that they couldn't detect it. If she couldn't sense it, then it must be karma. She smirked and typed, "My condolences. He Yao." Chapter 409. No matter how she looked at it, this sounded strange. He Yao, I didn't mean anything by sending you a notice. I just want you to be careful. He Yao, of course, if you're willing, I still want you to help me investigate. There's a reward. They were really forced into a corner. Only the higher-ups of the spirit group could deal with such a powerful opponent. However, those higher-ups were all extremely mysterious. Even if they wandered around, they didn't know who they were. He Yao could only ask Qiao Jin to help. Because Qiao Jin had the ability to foresee things. It was Jin, I'm still being monitored by your people. He Yao, you can cancel it when the time comes, although their surveillance didn't seem to work. She didn't know if it was because Qiao Jin's ability was foresight that she could avoid the surveillance of the spirit group. He Yao, let's meet and talk. It was Jin, sure. She and He Yao had agreed on a location, but she arrived before He Yao. Because when she sent the message, she already knew that He Yao would meet her. This time, He Yao was alone, and Lan Xiaoni didn't bring her. Compared to before, He Yao was more secretive this time, wearing a cap and sunglasses to hide herself. Qiao Jin looked at her and paused for a moment. It's useless. If Qiao Anna's people want to monitor you, you'll be discovered no matter how well you hide. He Yao was a little surprised. How do you know that I'm hiding from them? Qiao Jin, it's easy to understand. Her brother is dead, so she'll suspect every spiritualist in your country. Naturally, she'll send people to investigate. He Yao said, Qiao Anna only has a few people. It's impossible for her to monitor so many spiritualists. Of course, I can't be a bolster. I won't be so lucky as to be monitored by her, so I have to be prepared. Qiao Jin smiled meaningfully. That's not necessarily true. It's much easier for a few people to monitor you. He Yao frowned. What do you mean? Let me ask you a question. You've been in the spirit group for so long. Among all the spiritualists you've met, do you know why you're still called wizards? He Yao paused, a little puzzled. They were both spiritualists and sorcerers. In fact, there was no need to be so detailed. A spiritual reader was a spiritual reader. What did a wizard mean? Qiao Jin felt that since He Yao had been in contact with her for a long time now, she might be able to rely on her in the future, so she didn't mind revealing more information to her. He Yao nodded. I don't really understand why we're still called adepts. Qiao Jin leisurely took a sip of juice. That's because psychic is just a general term. Wizards are just one type of psychic. In this world, there are other types of psychic. They are not sorcerers. Yarrow's pupils dilated as she blurted out, "That's impossible." Qiao Jin said, "What's impossible about that?" Just like how you suspect that I don't just have the ability to predict the future, have you ever seen a wizard with multiple abilities? There's no harm in boldly assuming that there are other types of spiritual readers in this world. This was equivalent to her self-destruction. Yarrow was so shocked that she couldn't extricate herself. This was beyond her imagination. In fact, this question had been widely discussed in the spirit group for a long time. However, they never knew why spiritual psychics were called shamans. If there were other types of spiritual readers, then this question would be easy to understand. Chapter 410. They were called wizards because they were wizards. That didn't mean that there were no other types of spiritualists. Yarrow's professionalism prevented her from doing anything more. She only took a sip of water to hide her shock. "I find it hard to imagine. Qiao Jin, I can understand. After all, you were deceived by the spirit organization for so many years." Yarrow, the spirit organization deceived us? This was obviously another question that she found hard to accept. Qiao Jin said, "Of course the spirit group would lie to you. I even think that there's another spirit group that's similar to the spirit group. It's just that there's a different kind of spiritual reader in this group. They know of your existence, but you don't know of their existence." Yarrow didn't know what to say now. She looked at Qiao Jin and couldn't hide her shock. "So, you knew all along?" "Qiao Jin, I don't mind telling you. In this world, there are 3 types of spiritualists. Wizards are the most common, and the other 2 are rare, so you wizards don't know of them. The other 2 types are formation wizards. They use formations and can use any ability you wizards have as long as you can grasp the right formation points. Spiritualists can see the past and the future. Their words are the truth." Yarrow felt that her view of Qiao Jin had been refreshed after seeing him today. Qiao Jin explained to her, and she finally understood that sorcerers were the lowest level of existence among the spiritualists. High-level wizards were too rare, just like spiritualists. High-level wizards usually used a single ability to the extreme, and even ordinary formation wizards couldn't stop them. After hearing Qiao Jin's explanation, Yarrow couldn't help but ask, "So you, Qiao Jin, I'm a formation wizard." Yarrow suddenly understood. No wonder Qiao Jin could know so many things and predict the spirit organization's actions. It seemed that he had always been a high-level existence, an existence that wizards didn't know about. Yarrow had been in the organization for so many years, but she learned about the complexity of spiritualists from an outsider. She couldn't help but feel complicated. In fact, some people had suspected this before, but no one was able to confirm it. After all, those formation masters and spirit speakers had all gone into hiding. Since Qiao Jin had already exposed himself, he naturally didn't mind exposing other people's secrets. Joanna is a spell formation master, and even the entire Hurley family are spell formation masters. It's just that there are very few spell formation masters. To them, the death of one formation master was already a great loss, let alone 3. Joanna would not let this matter rest. If there was someone in Huaxia who could easily kill a formation master, the formation masters behind them would also show up. By then, there might even be a soul master of speech. This world is destined to not be peaceful anymore. Qiao Jin's words were meaningful. Of course, he didn't mention the trivial matter of those array masters dying because of his own karma backlash. What was there to talk about? It was such a small matter. It was as insignificant as the sudden appearance of her biological parents. Yarrow felt that she had suddenly found out a huge secret. She naturally knew that this kind of thing was not said because the higher-ups wanted to hide it. She didn't know why they wanted to hide it, but now she knew that if others found out that she knew about this, she probably wouldn't have a good ending. Qiao Jin wanted to drag her down with him. So what? She had already been dragged down by Qiao Jin. She didn't tell the organization about Qiao Jin, which was already a violation of the organization's rules. Chapter 4:11. Thinking of this, Yarrow felt a little helpless. Qiao Jin said, "I'm telling you this to tell you that the higher-ups of the spirit group will definitely help you. You don't have to worry about it. You just need to train Lan Xiaoni well. She's a high-grade wizard. When she grows up, her abilities will reach the peak. By then, it'll be hard for anyone to deal with your group. You just need to make sure that Lan Xiaoni doesn't go astray." Yarrow's hand trembled slightly as she drank the water. If one didn't pay attention, it would be hard to notice. Can wizards advance? It's to increase their abilities. Qiao Jin said, yes, but wizards without talent can't do it. They can only rely on their innate abilities. Lan Xiaoni was born that way. Many wizards find it hard to advance in their lives. Even spirit array masters have limitations. Spirit array masters can only use spirit array points and other abilities. Their abilities are actually similar to yours. Yarrow felt a little regretful when she heard that she couldn't advance anymore. It turned out that people's abilities were really innate. However, she was still a little confused. What about those demonized psychics? Qiao Jin said, those are the products of the demonized psychics. In the end, they will lose themselves and become the scourge of this world. Yarrow looked at Qiao Jin and sighed. No wonder you said that you were interested in the He Li family. So, what kind of person do you think would be able to kill Qiao Anna's brother from a distance? Yarrow was also a smart person. In fact, she was already suspicious of Qiao Jin. It was because Qiao Jin knew too much. Qiao Jin wouldn't talk about this. He just held his temples and smiled. Spirit array masters aren't omnipotent. Yarrow seemed to have understood something, so she didn't pursue the matter any further. Instead, she turned her attention back to the topic of spirit speakers. Spirit speakers seem to be even rarer than formation masters. You said that whatever they say will come true. Given how frightening their abilities are, does it really exist? If that's the case, aren't they invincible in this world? Qiao Jin said, nothing can escape from the shackles. Tyrannical strength will have corresponding restrictions. Don't be so scared. Otherwise, do you really think that they're invincible? Will there be any ordinary people in this world? The world will be in chaos. Yarrow had always been like this. At the very least, this was still an ordinary human world. Even if such a person existed, there should be some restrictions. Now that Yarrow knew the big secret, she wanted to know more. Just as she was about to ask, she saw someone walk in from outside the place where she and Qiao Jin had agreed to meet. When she saw it, her expression froze for a moment. It was a man who walked in. His handsome appearance attracted many people's attention. When he saw Qiao Jin and Yarrow, his expression turned cold. I knew you were here to see her. He walked over and looked at Yarrow with a mocking smile. He said in a low voice, Captain, I remember that our spirit group still hasn't removed her from the danger list. Isn't it bad for you to meet her so often? Yarrow frowned. Yu Xie, it's none of your business. I'm the captain. I have my reasons for doing this. Yu Xie, oh, what's your reason? Now that those foreigners are in trouble in China, the murderer hasn't been found. Every spiritualist could be the murderer, including the one in front of you. Captain, it's not good for you to meet a suspect, right? Yarrow, don't talk nonsense. Qiao Jin was still smiling. This young man was quite smart. Chapter 4:12. Am I talking nonsense? Captain, you don't have to be so agitated. Yu Xie pulled out a chair and sat down unceremoniously. He looked at Qiao Jin and grinned. Miss Qiao always appears at the right time. Qiao Jin continued to support his temples and looked at him. I don't know what you're talking about. Listen to him, This was the tone he usually used when he didn't admit what he had done. Yu Xie, the spirit group from abroad came to our country and something happened. How could Miss Chow not know about such a big thing? Miss Chow has the ability to predict the future. There's no reason she doesn't know about this, right? Qiao Jin straightened up and looked at him with amusement. If I could know everything in this world, do you think I would be standing here talking to you? He Yarrow looked at Yu Xie and her face turned cold. Yu Xie, I don't know what you're trying to say. Miss Chow met me as a private person. Miss Chow and I are friends. Can't I have private friends outside of the spirit group? As a team member, aren't you meddling too much? Don't slander Miss Chow. Before you have evidence, you'd better watch your mouth. He Yarrow didn't hold back at all. She had disliked Yu Xie for a long time. Yu Xie probably had some connections and his family background was superior. He was directly transferred to her team. He didn't get along with the other team members and didn't even listen to her. He probably felt that his ability was special and superior to others. Yu Xie also heard the coldness in He Yarrow's words and his smile became a little gloomy. Yes, it seems that I appeared at the wrong time and disturbed the captain and Miss Chow. Captain and Miss Chow are friends, so Captain should at least know that Miss Chow is being monitored by the spirit group, right? So what? He Yarrow stared coldly at Yu Xie. Monitoring is the rule of the spirit group. It doesn't mean that Miss Chow is a criminal. What do you mean by that? What do you think Miss Chow did? Is there anything wrong with me meeting Miss Chow? It seemed like the two of them were going to fall out in front of her. Qiao Jin looked amused, but he did not respond. She continued to take a sip of fruit juice. Yu Xie glanced at Qiao Jin with a sneer in his eyes. It would be best if nothing happened. Yu Xie felt that Qiao Jin was suspicious since he could not explain the matter of the demonized spirit seed. This time, she didn't directly think of Qiao Jin as the foreign array master. She just casually mentioned it. Seeing that the captain was about to fall out with him, he finally restrained himself a little. Yu Xie immediately stood up and left. He Yarrow looked at his departing figure helplessly. He's someone who has connections and has the ability to come here. I can't control him. Qiao Jin, it's actually pretty good. She curled her lips and said calmly, young people always have to suffer a little to know the immensity of heaven and earth. He Yarrow looked at Qiao Jin and her face was a little stiff. It's not to that extent. He's still serious when he does things. He's just a little suspicious of everyone out of habit. Qiao Jin, I didn't say anything. I'm not interested in doing anything to him. Don't worry. She looked at He Yarrow and raised her eyebrows slightly. He's not worthy. He Yarrow, fine. Now she knew that Qiao Jin was indeed inferior to them in some aspects. Especially now that she knew what Qiao Jin told her. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.